Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Demon Slayer. Sign in from Mount Sagiri. Chapter 26. Master Yan Zhu, what are you looking at? In the courtyard of the headquarters of the ghost-killing squad, a yin couldn't help asking. Because since 10 minutes ago, Rengoku Shinjuro has been staring in a certain direction, silent for a long time. In his usual serious expression, there was a seriousness. Even when encountering a ghost in the past, Makijiro never behaved like this before, the only explanation. It was Kibutsuji Muzan who appeared. Fine. Rengoku Shinjuro shook his head, took a cup of strong tea from Yin, took a sip, and said, "Thank you." The reason why he showed this look was that at a certain moment just now, he suddenly felt a familiar force. That is the flame. Pure incomparable heat. As a swordsman of the breath of flame, Rengoku Shinjuro has been immersed in this way since childhood, and the Rengoku family has been pondering the breathing method for generations, which makes the pillar of flame stronger and stronger with each generation. What's more, the breath of flame is the branch closest to the breath of the sun. This also led to the fact that the Rengoku family was born to be compatible with flames, and what's more, they even touched the threshold of Raihu without a teacher. However, in the final analysis, any breathing method is nothing more than simulating the natural state, and it is far from being able to achieve real energy pouring and creating flames out of thin air. But, it's clearly late at night. Why did the sun rise on Chie Mountain? Is it really Kibutsuji Muzan? Or is it some kind of instruction from heaven? He never imagined that the source of all this turned out to be a young swordsman. Forget it, Rengoku Kyujiro said to himself, and a hoarse and dull question came from behind him. And the sound of beads colliding. Mr. Rengoku, have you noticed anything unusual? The speaker is none other than Yenju Himehime Kyume. He still clasped his hands together, posing a posture of advocating Buddhism, and his blind eyes revealed sadness. Makijiro shook his head, and didn't go any further. Maybe. He had already heard from Yin that the former Naruju Kawajima Jigoro had gone to Mount Akano, and believed that there was that lord there. All will be well. That's good. Xingming nodded slightly. Xingming-jun, what's the matter with my lord? Is the treatment going well? Because of the busy work in the headquarters, Ubuyashiki ordered Rengoku Shinjuro to return to the Demon Slayer squad early, leaving only Himehime Kyume to guard him. It was not until this evening that the two returned late. Mentioning Ubuyashiki Kagaya's condition, Xingming fell silent. After a long time, he responded in a low voice. Compared to last time, my lord's condition seems to have worsened, and there is nothing the priest can do. With the opening of the rock pillars, the atmosphere in the courtyard is depressed again. Among the current 9 pillars, Himehime Kyume has the closest relationship with Kagaya and is also the most loyal. He was born in Omrichu Mountain, Tokyo Prefecture, and grew up in a temple since he was a child. As time went by, more and more monks left, leaving him alone. The kind-hearted Xingming took in some lonely and helpless children, treated them as family members, and lived a peaceful life. Until one day, a child named Kaigaku not only violated the rule of not being able to return at night, but even extinguished the incense sticks of vines to save his life, and led the ghosts into the temple. The children flee in a hurry and abandon Himehime Kyume as a useless blind man. Only a girl named Shadai is willing to accompany him. Therefore, in order to protect Shadai and fight the ghost with bare hands, Xingming used his human body to smash the ghost's head continuously, and finally killed him. However, what is disappointing is that Xingming's desperate efforts did not bring Shadai's gratitude, but he was accused of being a murderer of children. Go to jail. Since then, Xingming has also been completely disappointed in children and people's hearts. It was not until he was 18 years old that he was rescued by Kagaya, who was 14 years old at the time, before he was released from prison and joined the ghost-killing squad, becoming a well-respected rock pillar. Therefore, Xingming is loyal to Kagaya through thick and thin. He, with the readiness to give his life. After listening to the rock pillar's explanation, Rengoku Shinjuro let out a long sigh, and the courtyard became silent again. At the same time, Beidou also returned to the headquarters with everyone. Along the way, Kawajima Jigoro invited Beidou to visit Taoshin many times, and intentionally or unintentionally expressed his willingness to give him all he could. Because he saw a possibility in Beidou. Recover the lost breath of thunder. At this point in time, Kaigaku and Agatsuma Zenitsu have not yet been taken in by Naruju, and Naruju of the Demon Slayer squad has been vacant for a long time. Moreover, Beto's potential is enough to make Naruto's heart beat. Beto readily agreed to his request and made an appointment with Kawajima Jigoro to visit him. After all, Thunder's breath has some similarities with his swordsmanship. That is the truth of, the only thing in the world of martial arts is speed that cannot be broken. Holding the Nichiren blades, Beto walked slowly into the training ground of the demon-killing team, and continued to practice daily. Observe carefully, on his hands. There have been 2 extra heavy bracelets, gifts from Ubuyashiki. Call. Beto let out a long breath, and silently closed his eyes. His spirit gradually focused, and soon reached a state of meditation. Call. Beto sat upright in the forest, unshakable like a rock, as time passed. The breath also gradually merged into the mountains. The sounds of fighting kept coming from the training ground, but Beto ignored them. The ghost-slaying swordsmen who came and went stopped one after another, but he ignored them. At this moment, Beto is like a high-ranking monk. It's unbelievably awe-inspiring. The first thing he did when he returned to the ghost-killing squad was to choose to practice in seclusion. The reason for doing so? It is because of Kanglongpo. For a long time, Beto has accumulated almost inflated demon power by killing ogres, and the 4 souls have reached full value. If he converts his current attributes into a game, it's equivalent to level A and you can kill people in seconds. But this also limits Beto's development, because simply releasing demon power to fight will undoubtedly increase consumption and waste. Only by attacking with moves can you break the surface with a point. In other words, AoE damage is more cost-effective than flat A. Just like the powerful coercion of Kanglongpo. Enough to shake the top of Chie Mountain. Therefore, Beto chose to continue to practice in order to digest and understand the profound meaning contained in Kanglongpo. Unexpectedly, the coercion that Beto unintentionally released attracted the attention of a passerby. The visitor was in a hurry, as if there was something urgent. But when he sensed that powerful aura, he stopped suddenly and couldn't help staring. That classic fiery red feather weave is none other than Yenju Rengoku Shinjuro. He frowned slightly, and temporarily slowed down his actions, because Makijiro gradually realized that the aura was nearby. So that one is in the ghost-killing squad. It's incredible. Makijiro muttered to himself while walking, afraid of alarming the existence of that breath, at the same time let go of the breath of flame, and started exploring the surrounding area. Soon, he had a familiar feeling. Fire. Soaring fire. Rengoku Shinjuro was startled, because this feeling was nothing but the flames in the courtyard in the afternoon. Found it, just ahead. Makijiro couldn't help speeding up. In just a few breaths, he turned over several hills one after another, and finally came to a forest. Wait, here seems to be. That's right, what appeared in Makijiro's field of vision was a group of ghost-slaying swordsmen who were practicing. Many of them are newcomers who have just joined the team. How is it possible? That feeling is clearly here. While Makijiro was talking to himself, a voice broke the silence. Mr. Rengoku, are you looking for me? Hearing the faint voice behind him, Makijiro couldn't help turning his head, and saw a young face. At first he was still hesitant, but in the next second, Makijiro's doubts were resolved. Instead, there is a turbulent sea in my heart. Because in front of Makijiro, Beto pulled out Nichiren blades with a smile. A flash of dazzling red light is fleeting. Although it was only a blink of an eye, the imperceptible anxiety and strong sense of oppression. It is enough to show that Beto is the sword-bearer of Chie Mountain. Observing carefully, Rengoku Shinjuro's brows were raised high, and his pupils also shrank at this moment. No matter how deep his concentration was, he couldn't suppress this brief shock. But after a while, Makijiro slowly came back to his senses. There was an unnatural look between his brows. Thinking that his majestic Yenju would be shocked by a newcomer, Makijiro felt a little embarrassed and helpless. Even so, he still didn't show it. You are Beto, right? Hearing the question, Beto nodded calmly. After receiving Beto's affirmation, Makijiro finally heaved a long sigh, feeling a little fortunate. Fortunately, Beto is on the side of the Ghost Slayer squad. If such a talented person is with Kibutsuji Muzan, the consequences will be disastrous. The demise of the ghost-killing team is also close at hand. Beto felt that Makijiro was relieved, and probably guessed his thoughts, but didn't try to expose them. Mr. Rengoku, I have something to ask you. Makijiro frowned, not understanding Beto's intention. Immediately afterwards, his heart once again set off a frenzy, and it was difficult to calm down for a long time. I want to inquire with you about some breathing techniques, such as the breath of the sun. Crash! An invisible air wave surged from Makijiro's feet, and quickly spread around, attracting fallen leaves. It was a long time before he responded. Beto, you are stronger than I thought. It's also more mysterious. His subtext is, you will know this secret. What Makijiro didn't notice was that when he faced Beto, he completely lost the attitude of a superior. On the contrary, it is more like a peer, or even a junior. In an almost negotiating tone. Be careful. Then Mr. Rengoku's answer is, I understand. Makijiro nodded solemnly, then subconsciously held Nichiren and said, Mr. Beto, please follow me. After finishing speaking, he took Beto and walked home. The ghost-slaying swordsmen on the training ground were still practicing breathing techniques day after day, but they never realized that they were in the woods just now. A crucial game has been played. Kwang Jin, what are you looking at? Hearing the call of his companions, the dazed swordsman came to his senses and grabbed the Nichiren blades again. Kakino scratched his head, not knowing why. He always had the feeling that something was going on in the woods. Here we come. Along the way, the ghost-slaying swordsmen who came and went saw Makijiro, and they all nodded respectfully and greeted him. No matter where it is, the law of the jungle is followed. In the ghost-killing squad, Zu is synonymous with the strong, so he is widely respected and loved by people. However, when these swordsmen noticed that Yanzu was walking with Beto, what is revealed is not just as simple as surprise. After careful observation, Makijiro's words and demeanor did not look like a boss at all, but more like an old friend. Asking Beto kindly, what? Mr. Beto, where did you know about the breath of the sun? Looking at Makijiro's burning eyes, Beto smiled faintly. Although the world is well aware of the reputation of the 5 basic breathing methods, few people know that the ancestor breathing that surpasses it. Breath of the day. This is not because of secrecy, but because it has been lost for a long time. Hundreds of years have passed, and the years have already weathered the prestige of breath of the sun, and even the existence of markings has disappeared. Even Rengoku Shinjuro is known through family letters passed down from generation to generation. For the rest of the pillars, I'm afraid they can't even be called half knowledgeable. Mr. Rengoku, let's take a step to talk. Beto chuckled softly, and Rengoku Shinjuro realized that he had lost his composure. I'm sorry, please follow me. Not long after, the two came to the residence of the Rengoku family in the Ghost Slayer squad, which was a small, leisurely and elegant residence. Please come in. Rengoku Shinjuro raised the curtain, and at this moment, the sound of fighting suddenly came from his ears. Crack, crack, Shinjuro, stand up. Big brother, but a man should never give up at any time. Hearing this hearty laughter, Beto's heart was moved, and he followed the reputation and found a pair of fiery red-haired teenagers in the courtyard. They are fighting with wooden swords. The two look similar to Makijiro, but their expressions are completely different. The standing tall boy had piercing eyes, a smile filled the corners of his mouth, and he exuded a high-spirited posture. On the other hand, the younger brother who was sitting on the ground always had a sad look on his brows. Feeling Beto's gaze, Rengoku Shinjuro smiled awkwardly. Mr. Beto, I've let you off the hook, they are dogs. Kyujiro, Shinjuro, come here quickly. Following Makijiro's opening, the two teenagers who were confronting each other with wooden swords also noticed this side. They nodded in unison, and at the same time had doubts about Beto. In the impression of the two, his father Makijiro has always been serious and rigid, only when he is fighting with ghosts is he full of fighting spirit. Why did you suddenly change your temper today? Also brought a teenager who was about their age. Father, this is Kyujiro, who was more courageous, couldn't help asking, and Makijiro introduced with a smile, this is Mr. Beto. Hearing this familiar name, the two brothers froze for a moment, then widened their eyes. Mr. Beto, is that the strongest rookie? I was rude just now, please don't mind. Kyujiro showed eagerness to try, but Shinjuro put his palms together in respect. It seems that they have heard about Beto's record for a long time. No problem. Beidou nodded slightly, with a rough idea in mind. At this time, Kyujiro was just 17 years old, still young, and far from being qualified to become a pillar. In the original plot, what really made him transform into Yenju is a crucial node. Makijiro, you're back. While everyone was talking, a woman in a purple kimono came slowly. Her appearance was pretty, but her complexion was as pale as paper. When she walked, she was also a little shaky, as if it could fall down at any time. Ruhuo, why did you come out? Go back and rest. When he saw this woman, Makijiro, who was still smiling just now, suddenly became worried. Didn't the doctor tell you to rest? It's okay, it's rare to have guests at home. The woman smiled faintly, and bowed to Beidou, without contempt at all because of his age. Beidou nodded, a strange look flashed in his eyes. Because he had already remembered the identity of this person, Kyujiro's mother. Rengoku Lu Fire. It was also because of her death that Makijiro was completely sunk, resigned from Yanju's position, and never recovered from the fall. Therefore, the strong Kyujiro took the place of his father by relying on the 3-volume Yanhu guide handed down from his ancestors and self-taught. Mr. Beidou, I just laughed. Makijiro's tone became low, and his emotions were almost written on his face. It's okay. Please follow me. Seeing this, Rengoku Ruhuo at the side also said softly, Husband, please wait a moment, I'll make tea for you. Trouble. Watching Rengoku Shinjuro and Beidou leave, in the courtyard. Kyujiro blinked his eyes, revealing a touch of envy. What's the matter, big brother? Senshoro is still playing with the wooden sword, but no matter how you look at it, he doesn't look like he has the talent for swordsmanship. It was Kyujiro instead, who had already guessed about it. Senjuro, do you think Mr. Beidou will be the next pillar? What? Passing through the courtyard, the two entered the elegant living room. Regardless of Rengoku Shinjuro's rugged appearance, his home is clean and orderly, presumably because of Rengoku's care. Mr. Beidou, please sit down. The two sat on the futon respectively. Beidou nodded slightly. I heard from Korea that you are Mr. Rinaki's apprentice, right? Dare I ask him if the old man is still in good health? In fact, Yorokodaki Sakanji is already over 70 years old. In the entire ghost-killing team, except for Taiki Heiu and Tiejun from Forging Sword Village, they all call him senior. Beidou said with a smile. Mr. Rengoku is sorry, Master is safe. That's good. Hearing Beidou's answer, Rengoku Shinjuro also breathed a sigh of relief. The last time I went to Mount Sagiri, because of the urgent task, I just had a quick meeting with Mr. Ryataki, and I won't have time to visit in the future. It's okay, Master, he won't mind. Makijiro smiled gently, and then got to the point. Mr. Beidou, is it convenient to tell me about the breath of the sun? Although Yenju kept his tone calm on purpose, Beidou could still hear his expectation. In the original plot, Makijiro, who has resigned from Yenju, said this sentence in anger when facing Tanjiro's visit. All breathing is just the footsteps of Bu Rizi's breathing. It's a degraded breath that imitates the breath of the sun. At the same time, according to the books passed down from generation to generation by the Rengoku clan, the breath of the sun is undoubtedly the strongest breath, the bane of ghosts. That's why Makijiro was so excited when he heard the news of Hi-Ho. Beidou narrowed his eyes slightly, memories of Raihu flashed in his mind. Following Guo Yueni, the Kamado clan, the fire god Kagura. Mr. Rengoku, you must know the stripes too. As soon as these words came out, Rengoku Shinjuro's eyes widened, and his heart was struck by lightning. The mystery of the breath of the sun has not been revealed. Beidou dropped another blockbuster. Mr. Beidou, you. Beads of sweat formed on Makijiro's forehead. After a long time, he calmed down and stared at the young man in front of him with an almost weird look. Makijiro even suspects that Beidou is from the Ubuyashiki clan. Otherwise, how could he explain that he knew so many mysteries? Mr. Beidou, I understand. Makijiro nodded solemnly, turned around and closed the curtain, leaving only one candle flickering. Now, we can have a good talk. I also learned about the stripes and the breath of the sun from the guidebooks left by my ancestors. Makijiro sorted out his words, and slowly replied, it is said that in the Warring States period 500 years ago, a noble family gave birth to a talented swordsman, and the breath of the sun came from him. Yes. Beidou was still calm. During a certain battle, This swordsman fought Kibutsuji Muzan, but he failed in the end, and the breath of the sun was lost. Rengoku Shinjuro looked a little lonely. Since then, the ghost has been hiding, regardless of no matter how hard the rest of the swordsmen tried to imitate, they couldn't comprehend the real breath of the sun. Therefore, so many breathing methods have been derived according to the adaptation conditions of each person. There are rumors that the swordsman once passed on the breath of the sun to his descendants, but so far, no one knows where he is. After Makijiro finished speaking, the room fell silent. Beidou took a sip of his tea, followed his words and continued, "The only feature is the flower earrings." That's right. Makijiro's eyes lit up. He didn't expect Beidou's information to be so detailed. Does this mean that he already knows where the Raihu inheritance is? Mr. Beidou, please enlighten me. While talking, Tangtang Yenju actually lowered his head to plead with him. Beidou had already guessed that Makijiro would do this, and Furui Mubo said, "It won't be long before the real successor of Raihu will come, and then he will bring the answer you want, and..." Having said this, Beidou paused. "Destroy Kibutsuji Muzan completely." Hearing these words, Rengoku Shinjuro was suddenly stunned, because he could not feel a trace of arrogance and deceit in Beidou. Only pure confidence and authenticity. After a moment of silence, Makijiro expressed his thanks again. Because he has obtained the dawn of victory from Beidou, and the whereabouts of the breath of the sun. All that's left is to wait. Mr. Beidou, please also have some tea. While the two were talking, a thin figure brought a teapot and refilled hot tea for them. It was Rengoku Ruhuo who was ill. "Thank you, ma'am." Ruhuo nodded with a smile, and quickly walked out of the room, for fear of disturbing the two of them. Noticing the melancholy in Rengoku Shinjiro's brow, Beidou raised his mouth slightly. "Mr. Rengoku, there is one more thing." "Mr. Beidou, but say it's okay." Beidou opened his mouth slowly, and the words were not surprising. "I think your wife, has been ill for a long time, right?" As soon as the words fell, Rengoku Shinjiro fell silent. After a battle between heaven and man, he nodded reluctantly. "Ruhuo, has been in poor health. What if I can cure her?" Rengoku Shinjiro suddenly froze. By the time Beidou left Rengoku's family, it was nearly evening. No one knows what the two talked about. The only thing that is certain is Rengoku Shinjiro's attitude towards this newcomer. Visible changes have taken place. "Husband, don't we keep Mr. Beidou for dinner?" "No, he has other things to do." Outside the courtyard, watching Beidou leave, Makijiro was filled with emotion. Once upon a time, when he heard those legends, he still had doubts, but now he is more certain than ever. "Ruhuo, I'm really old." Makijiro shook his head in shame, but Ruhuo beside him frowned. But in a flash, Yanzu turned his attention to the two brothers who were still practicing swords in the courtyard. Rengoku Kyujiro, to be precise. I hope Kyujiro can learn something from Beidou. Reviving the glory of the Rengoku clan. At the same time, after bidding farewell to Yenju, Beidou returned to his living room. In fact, Beidou had discovered the existence of Rengoku Shinjiro through the message sent by the wind as early as when he was practicing in the training ground. After all, his breath of flame is very special. Therefore, Beidou had already made plans to talk to Rengoku Shinjiro starting from the condition of sun breath and Rengoku Ruhuo. During the whole process, Beidou also called Makijiro, telling him that the inheritance of the breath of the sun has never been broken. But in the end, Beidou still did not point out the existence of Tanjiro. Because he knew in his heart that with Rengoku Shinjiro's current attitude towards ghosts, he would definitely find the Kamado family for the breath of the sun, and even take some drastic measures. In this case, the peace of the Kamado family will be disturbed. Perhaps, it will also let Kibutsuji Muzan discover Tanjiro's secret in advance. Hasten the death of the Kamado family. Now that Beidou has come to this world, he will make full use of every opportunity instead of letting others intervene and manipulate him. After all, he only believes in himself. Boom boom. Just as Beidou wiped the Nichiren blades, there was a knock on the door. The voice is gentle and gentle. Like a woman. "Excuse me, is this Mr. Beidou's home?" Hearing this familiar voice, Beidou smiled faintly. Sure enough, after opening the door, what came into view was a petite and lovely girl in butterfly clothes, with a shy face on her pretty face. The girl is not tall, around 1.5 meters, barely reaching Beidou's chest. Oops, Beidou opened the door suddenly, the girl's outstretched hand was hanging in the air, and she took a step forward unavoidably. It was this unfortunate step that made her lose control of her focus. Seeing the girl's forehead hit Beidou's shoulder, her eyes froze for almost an instant. She paused for a few seconds before quickly taking a step back. It's just that anyone can see that her face is redder than before. I'm so sorry. The girl hastily apologized to Beidou. Her tone was as eager as ever, and her stereotyped expression was slightly arrogant. She was Kocho Kanae's younger sister. Miss Kocho Shinobu. It's okay, Beidou said lightly. He swept Kocho Shinobu slightly, and after the unintentional dragon impact just now, Beidou realized a problem. Compared to Kanroji Mitsuri, Kocho Shinobu is the one who shows the mountain without revealing the water. That, Shinobu frowned, and organized his thoughts. Mr. Beidou, what happened last time was my fault, thank you for reminding me. I came to visit this time just to apologize. As Beidou expected, with Kocho Shinobu's ice and snow intelligence, it is not difficult to figure out that he saved her once. What's more, with Kocho Kanae's words and deeds, there was little suspense that she came to apologize. Beidou nodded, seemingly not interested, and the atmosphere was silent for a while. The current Kocho Shinobu is also not good at talking, and his personality is a bit frizzy and dull. So the conversation between the two was awkward. If there is nothing wrong, then I will take my leave first. Excuse me. Kocho Shinobu tapped his head and was about to leave Beidou's hut. Unexpectedly, in the next second, a voice of inquiry came from her ear, making her stagnate. Wait a moment, Mr. Beidou, is there anything else? Yeah, Beidou nodded slightly. Kocho Shinobu was a little scared with sharp eyes. In fact, Shinobu didn't notice anything last time, but this time facing Beidou. But she really felt a kind of oppression. It seemed that what stood erect in front of him was a sword. A sword that is deliberately restraining its sharpness. No wonder her sister warned her to be careful when talking with Mr. Beidou. Just then Beidou said slowly, wondering, I want to find out, what is the mission you mentioned last time? Kocho Shinobu's beautiful eyes widened, showing disbelief. In the original plot, when Kocho Kanae was performing a mission to kill ghosts, he encountered the current number 2 Doma, and was not absorbed because he fought until dawn. On her deathbed, she uttered her last wish to Kocho Shinobu, who arrived late. Ninja, leave the Demon Slayer squad. Don't harbor resentment, just be happy like ordinary people. In the end, Kanae passed away with tears in her eyes. Since then, Kocho Shinobu has deliberately created a gentle image as if he had changed, but his inner resentment towards Doma and other ghosts has never stopped. Now, the time has come to 3 years ago. This time the tragedy will not happen again. Mr. Beidou, that's how things are. In the living room, Kocho Shinobu worriedly explained the cause and effect, not knowing where to put his 2 little hands. Beidou, who was sitting opposite him, also nodded slightly. From Kocho Shinobu's narration, there is not too much news about this ghost, and some are just the reactions of the surrounding villagers. According to eyewitnesses, there were people missing for several nights in a row, and these people had one thing in common. That's women, all young women. These poor girls disappeared into the world for no reason. The local townspeople searched all corners within a radius of 10 miles, but found no traces. It was as if the world had evaporated. After receiving this information, the Crow truthfully reported it to the ghost killing squad, so it became an unsolved case. It wasn't until Sylvia Kocho Kanae heard about it that he finally decided to accept the mission and go to save the people there. Thinking of this, a strange color flashed in Beidou's eyes. In the original plot, there are 2 ghosts related to the girl. One is Doma from 12 Kazuki, who is known as the master of the Elysian Bliss cult. He is most obsessed with the taste of girls, and often orders his followers to arrest him. The other one was the triangular ghost in the northwest town, which was finally solved by Tanjiro and his team. I understand. After a moment of silence, Beidou nodded slightly. As if aware of something, Kocho Shinobu looked expectantly. Mr. Beidou, what do you mean? In Shinobu's view, since Beidou asked so much information, he must have become interested in this mission. Maybe you can bring yourself to participate. Beidou didn't answer her, but took a sip of tea lightly. He was also thinking, should he take this troublesome guy with him? I'll discuss this with Miss Kocho. As for you. Beidou paused, and a slight smile rose from the corner of his mouth. There's still something missing. What? Kocho Shinobu frowned slightly, and subconsciously straightened his waist, stretching out the irregular arc of the team uniform. Seeing this scene, Beidou cleared his throat. Only then did she realize that she seemed to be rude again. I'm really sorry, Mr. Beidou. No problem. Please, Mr. Beidou, give me a chance. Don't look at Kocho Shinobu's young age, but just relying on his sister's evaluation of Beidou and the fierce aura just now. She is enough to conclude that Beidou's future is limitless. Otherwise, how could it be possible to enter and exit the courtyard of the headquarters as a newcomer? Seeing Ninja blushing, Beidou nodded. 3 days later, it's still here. I hope you can pass my test. As soon as these words came out, Kocho Shinobu was slightly taken aback. But in the next second, she nodded happily. Thank you very much, Mr. Beidou. After the two communicated again, Kocho Shinobu left the hut in a hurry. It is worth mentioning that her expression changed significantly. The image of Beidou in her heart has also changed from mysterious and inaccessible to a height that she has the courage to touch. On the other hand, Beidou didn't feel flustered at all after hearing about the powerful ghost. Because he already had a premonition that the system's next check-in task. It's coming soon. The next morning, the sun broke through the morning fog. On the training ground at this time, more than a dozen Ghost Slayer swordsmen had already gathered, all waiting for the headquarters to announce the mission. Among them, there are many familiar faces. Master Beidou, long time no see. As soon as Kwano Katsumi found Beidou, he couldn't help calling out his name, which quickly spread to the team. Is that one Beidou? I heard that he not only defeated Goto, even Kota and Mikawa were defeated by his sword. What is this? It seems that Beidou completed the mission in Chie Mountain last time. All of a sudden, all eyes were on him. From the final selection of Fujishiyama, Beidou's name has been circulating in the Demon Slayer squad almost never stopped. Seeing him again now, everyone's mentality and feelings. Earth-shaking changes have taken place. Because in Beidou's body, the sharp-edged aura gradually disappeared, and it was replaced by something more profound and unfathomable terror. This is a sign of maturity. Facing these fanatical fans, Beidou nodded lightly. He walked straight through the crowd, and finally stopped at the end of the line. There is a girl. Long time no see, little sister. Hearing this familiar voice, the girl's beautiful eyes widened. 2 lines of tears flowed on the smile. She is Makomo. Makomo is still the same as before, so peaceful and natural. There was just a touch of worry hanging between her brows. There has been no contact between the two since Beidou left Mount Sagiri for headquarters 2 weeks ago. And as time went by, more and more news came to Makomo's ears. The strongest rookie, destroying ghosts alone, overpowering all heroes. Make no mistake, these rumors all mean one thing. That is Beidou's rapid rise in Ghost Slayer, like a shining supernova. It is precisely because of this that Makomo has a little inferiority complex in his young mind. Originally an orphan, she was adopted by Yurokotaki Sakanji since she was a child. What she lacks most is a sense of security. It wasn't until he met Beidou that he gradually confided in his heart, and he also became fond of joking. But after hearing the legend of Beidou, Makomo thought of those wandering days again, fearing that he would return to loneliness. At the same time, she didn't want to disturb Beidou. Just now, all Makomo's worries and suspicions were broken by that familiar greeting. Little sister, long time no see. From the beginning to the end, Beidou's eyes were on her, making Makomo's heart almost tremble. There is no need to say the phrase, I thought you forgot me. Beidou, noticing the moisture in Makomo's eyes, Beidou smiled and gently wiped away the teardrop. In the next second, Makomo couldn't hold back any longer, and the figures of the two gradually overlapped, completely forgetting the gazes of other swordsmen. Cough cough. Makomo didn't realize something until he heard a coughing sound in his ear, and the deer let go of his embrace in a frenzy. She raised her head and met Beidou's eyes. Little brother, that. Makomo turned sideways in embarrassment, but he didn't realize that his little hand had been slightly raised. On the other side, everyone's attention was also attracted by the person who came. Look, Master Wazu is here. Master Kocho is still as gentle as ever. It turned out that Master Wazoo came to announce the mission. Is there any change this time? The Demon Slayer swordsmen present were discussing a lot, mostly guessing what the arrival of Kocho Kanae symbolized. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Kocho Kanae nodded. Her eyes smiled into crescent moons, revealing an amiable temperament, without any pretensions at all. Since Mr. Goto has been transferred to Yin, from today onwards, I will take over this job temporarily. Transfer. Beto's eyes narrowed, Goto's dead fish eyes flashed in his mind, and he couldn't help smiling. Didn't you agree? Will you ask me for advice when you have time? This guy. According to the mission records of last month, quite a few people have already met the advanced requirements. The first thing to do is to evaluate them. Huajing Shishu, from the Gui rank to the Ren rank. Sugihara Jun, promoted from Shin rank to Zheng rank. Chita Ashinosuke, promoted from Shin rank to On rank. As Kocho Kanae slowly said, the swordsman whose name was called nodded happily, and couldn't help but straighten his waist. For them, this is not just a level change. It is an honor. Because in the ghost killing team, the higher the level means, the more ghosts are killed, and the more attention the master can get. Soon, Kanae looked at this side. Makomo, upgrade from Deka to Sin. Hearing his own name, Makomo was slightly taken aback. Reminded by Beto's eyes, she raised her little hand high and blurted out, yes. Kanae smiled softly, which reassured Makomo a lot. At this moment, the eyes of all the ghost swordsmen are focused on Beto. They want to have a look at this strongest rookie. What grade will it be rated at? Is it the initial Decano? Or A, B, C, D? Or a column? Unexpectedly, when everyone waited until the end, Kocho Kanae didn't read Beto's name, as if he had forgotten it. In the crowd, Kakino Kwangjin scratched his head and couldn't help asking. Master Wazoo, have you forgotten Beto? He did this because Beto saved his life. Kwangjin has always kept this incident in his heart. As soon as these words came out, although all the swordsmen did not speak, their expressions also showed doubts. With the character of Ubuyashiki Kagaya, it is absolutely impossible to treat anyone badly. Could it be that? Don't worry, everyone. Kocho Kanae smiled lightly and walked directly into the team. To be precise, it was all the money who came to Beto. She smiled and took something out of her bosom, and offered it with both hands in a very respectful manner. It was an exquisite wooden signboard. The pattern is engraved with a mysterious wisteria pattern. Mr. Beto, according to your lord's order, please participate in the advanced battle of the pillar in a week. All of a sudden, there was complete silence in the team. A group of people stared wide-eyed and suddenly didn't react. Column, where is the column? Doesn't this mean that Beto has met the conditions to become a pillar? Now, the entire ghost killing team is about to boil. On the other hand, Makomo's eyes flashed with an incomprehensible look. Only Beto took the wooden sign calmly. Thanks. At this moment, the training field can be said to be a needle drop. Everyone's eyes widened, looking at Beto with a blank gaze. The man who was hailed as a miracle. It has been less than 2 weeks since he joined the ghost killing team. He has won countless honors and created countless desirable legends. Now, I have received an invitation from Ubuyashiki Kagaya again. About to accept the name of the pillar. You know, Beto is only 17 years old, and he has already fulfilled the dream that most people can't achieve in a lifetime. No one will raise an objection, because Beto's strength is beyond doubt. These are all as he should. The current Tokido Muichiro has not yet joined the team. If Beto successfully passes the advanced competition, then he is the first in history. The youngest column, Mr. Beto, since this is the case. Then my lord and all the pillars are waiting for your arrival. Kocho Kanae bowed slightly, showing respect to Beto. From the first time she saw Beto, she could see the extraordinariness of this boy, but what Kanae didn't expect was, this day will come so fast. Beto nodded slightly, watched Kanae return to the center, and continued to assign tasks for everyone. Makomo next to me, I don't know whether it is excitement or timidity. It was trembling faintly. Soon, a big hand wrapped around her fragrant shoulders, and Makomo's trembling gradually stopped, and he naturally leaned against Beto's side. No matter what happens in the future, at this moment, she just wants to lie in Beto's arms. A few minutes later, After Kocho Kanae finished reading the letter of appointment, the Ghost Slayer swordsmen also left one by one, heading for their respective mission locations. Just when Kanae was about to leave, Beidou stopped her suddenly. "Miss Kocho, there is something I want to ask you." Kanae blinked her beautiful eyes, and said with a smile, "Mr. Beidou, if you have something to say, it's okay to say it." Through the Kocho Shinobu incident last time, the relationship between the two has gradually become familiar, and Kanae's personality has always been very lively. Beidou nodded, speaking without sloppiness. "I want to take over the case of the missing girl." "I don't know what you want." Before the words finished, Kocho Kanae couldn't help frowning, as if he was a little confused. Since the appearance of this task, several swordsmen have gone to carry it out, but the results undoubtedly failed. That's why it's been delayed until now. Kanae originally wanted to lead the team in person, but Beidou unexpectedly asked, "Could it be?" Sensing a hint of understanding from Kanae, Beidou said frankly, "If possible, I need an assistant." "Mr. Beidou, what you said could not be. Forbearance, it's very suitable." Sure enough, for a while, Kocho Kanae was in a tangle. If Beidou were to carry out the task, the success rate would undoubtedly be greatly improved, and the case would be concluded as soon as possible. But when it comes to Kocho Shinobu, as an older sister, she was really hesitant. After a battle between heaven and man, Kanae let out a mouthful of turbid air, and when she looked up again, she showed a helpless smile. "Mr. Beidou, I would like to remind you in advance that Shinobu is still young, and she may be a little willful at times." "So you agree?" Beidou smiled faintly, sensing Kanae's panic. She frowned, and finally nodded. "Then, please trouble Mr. Beidou." At the same time, outside a certain living room of the ghost killing team, a ghost slayer swordsman who had just left the training ground entered the courtyard panting. "My lord, yes, I have something to report to you." "What are you doing so eagerly? Didn't you see that I was making explosives gorgeously?" The swordsman nodded in embarrassment, and a pungent breath came to his face, almost making him faint. On the table in front of him, there was a pile of black clods and sand, charcoal, saltpeter powder, paper bags. And the one who fiddled with everything was a handsome man wearing a white scarf, and many red patterns were painted around his eyes. "He is the current sound column Uzui Tengen. I'm really sorry to disturb your work, Lord Yinju." "It's okay, I accept your apology gorgeously." Uzui Tengen seemed to be in a good mood, and made a soil bomb with ease, and put it in the box. Before joining the ghost killing team, he came from a legendary ninja family. He learned ninja training from his father since he was a child, and was proficient in all kinds of ninja tools and ninjutsu. After becoming a pillar, Tengen even applied these techniques to the great cause of killing ghosts. His favorite catchphrase is, "Gorgeous. Say it beautifully, what's the matter?" The swordsman nodded and said respectfully, "It's the newcomer named Beidou under Master Linlong. According to the instructions brought by Master Kocho, the Lord has officially appointed him as the pillar." As soon as this remark came out, Uzui Tengen stopped moving. "Zoo, this speed is really gorgeous. Yes, next week there will be an advanced battle for the position of the pillar." Uzui Tengen smiled in surprise, put down the half-made special explosives, and raised his chin with his fingers. This gorgeous newcomer is indeed unexpected. It's just. Having said that, Uzui Tengen stared. Is he from that night? Instead of worrying about this, you should consider the advanced battle. In addition to Uzui Tengen, another figure emerged from the shadows, with kelp-like black mid-length hair, and the lower half of his face was tightly wrapped. What's even more chilling is that his eyes are green on the left and gold on the right. On his shoulder, there is also a white snake spewing out letters. Hiss, Iguro-kun, you're exaggerating. Seeing the arrival of Snake Zoo Iguro Obanai, Uzui Tengen smiled and said, "Even if this Beidou is indeed a genius, no matter how you count, he is still underage." Yinju is right, even though there have been many geniuses in recent years, the youngest of the 9 pillars, Iguro Obanai and Kocho Kanae, were 19 years old when they became pillars. And at that time, it was still because there were too many vacancies in 9 pillars. These two were promoted exceptionally. Someone like Beidou who was named a pillar at the age of 17. Not to mention the present, even if you look at the entire history of the ghost killing squad, it is unique. As Uzui Tengen said, he picked up the explosives again, and turned his gaze to the swordsman beside him. Go gorgeously, I will think carefully about it. Understood, Lord Yinju. The swordsman nodded slightly, then raised his head to greet Snake Zu before leaving the room. After careful observation, Iguro Obanai remained calm, but in the pair of strange-colored pupils. But there was a sense of crisis. Because compared to Uzui Tengen, who is careless, he has really witnessed Beto's rapid rise. Since Tengen-kun said so, then I will take my leave first. Uzui Tengen nodded. See you in the advanced battle. Snake Zu narrowed his eyes slightly and disappeared into the darkness. Soon, in less than half a day, the news spread throughout the ghost-killing squad. From the headquarters to the butterfly house, and even the forging knife village have also heard about it. Is this Beto really that strong? Naturally, otherwise, how could the Lord give the appointment? But I heard that he has only joined the team for less than 2 weeks. Don't you know that he killed a string ghost? What? It's the ghost in Chie Mountain. Even the former Lord Naruto praised Beto, isn't that enough? In the streets and alleys, everyone is talking about Beto's deeds, gradually becoming deified. It is even claimed that Beto broke into Muzen's lair single-handedly. All in all, almost all swordsmen are looking forward to Beto's performance in the advanced battle of the pillar position. Contrary to the enthusiasm of these people, at the same time, the atmosphere in a secluded corner of the ghost-killing squad was very depressing. To be precise, only shortness of breath remained. Are you ready, Shinobu? Let's begin then. In the open space in front of the living room, 2 figures, one large and one small, faced each other with swords. That tall man was naturally Beto. In contrast, the girl in butterfly clothes was Kocho Shinobu, who was invited. At this time, she was holding her breath, and there was a touch of tension between her brows. In order to fulfill the agreement with Beto, Kocho Shinobu has been training non-stop for the past few days, and his pretty face is also stained with fatigue. But when I think of being able to share my sister's worries, participating in this mission, Kocho Shinobu cheered up again. Observing the firm look in her eyes, Beto nodded slightly, and pulled out the black gold Nichiren blades. A golden light is fleeting. She couldn't help closing her eyes, but in the next second, the knife was already hanging on her forehead. You lose. She didn't realize it until she heard Beto's voice next to her ear. This, so fast. Swallowing a sigh of relief, her heart fluctuated due to shock. She expected that she would lose, but she didn't expect. I can't even see Beto's movements clearly. Obviously, the knife was still in the sheath 1 second, and it was close at hand the next second. The speed was too fast for Kocho Shinobu's perception. So this is the power of the column level. Finished. No, Mr. Beto, please give me another chance. Beto nodded, agreeing to her plea. This time Kocho Shinobu did not hesitate any longer, but chose to take the initiative to attack, showing her housekeeping skills as soon as she came up. Flower's breath Siji shape red flower dress. Before the words were finished, the rapier had already arrived suddenly. The swift speed makes Shinobu hang in midair, really like a Kocho dancing. It is too beautiful to behold. At this time, she has not yet created the breath of insects, and is still using the flower breath from her sister. Facing Kocho Shinobu's fierce offensive, Beto finally had a little interest. He nodded and swung a knife with one hand. Buzz. All of a sudden, the edge of infinity suddenly appeared, and it came into contact with Hong Wai from an extremely tricky angle, and then instantly tore apart Kocho Shinobu's offensive. What? Kocho Shinobu blinked his beautiful eyes, and faintly felt his right hand trembling, and he was about to let go of the rapier in the next second. Unexpectedly, at this critical moment, Shinobu grabbed the hilt of the sword desperately. Looking at her little face again, it was already blushing. No, for my sister, but also for myself. I can't lose this time. Breath of flowers, 3 shapes, Mikage May. I saw Kocho Shinobu swinging the rapier back and forth, sending out arc-shaped slashes in all directions. The trajectory was like the petals of plum blossoms. The ding-ding sounded endlessly, shockingly. She even briefly resisted that sword light. Although only for a few moments. Ding-ding. Several metal knocks sounded, and seeing that the sword light had not disappeared, Kocho Shinobu immediately made a decision. She quickly bent down and let the sword light fly by. The Kocho hairpin on his head was cut off, and the next second, the tomboy's mid-length hair fell loose. Fortunately, Ren dodged in time, otherwise the sword light would have cut it off. It's not just as simple as a hairpin. Do you want to continue? Beidou played with the Nichiren blades in his hand, looking down at her. In an instant, an invisible sense of oppression descended suddenly, making Kocho Shinobu's already thin body shudder. Come again. She did not give up, but launched another persistent attack. Seeing this situation, Beidou didn't mind teaching her a lesson, and pulled out a few more sword flowers. Seeing this scene, Kocho Shinobu frowned and held his breath. Breath of flower Wuji type fruitless peony. Different from other types of huahu, the biggest feature of the fruitless peony is that it uses up to 9 consecutive hits to impose its strength on one point for stabbing. To achieve the effect of breaking the surface with a point. If Makomo were here, he would definitely recognize that this move is very similar to water breathing, forbidden form, and hitting tide. They are all attacking continuously through tide-like offensives. In fact, this is exactly the case. The breath of flowers is originally a derivative of the breath of water. After the improvement of Kocho Kanae, it is more suitable for women with weak strength. Before he knew it, Kocho Shinobu had come to Beidou. Soon, just one more step and you can hit him. I was so excited that my heartbeat was also accelerating, and I saw victory in sight. Little did he know that her every move, as well as her little thoughts, had already been taken into consideration by Beidou. To break the surface, what if there are many fans? Suddenly, Beidou twitched and Nichiren blades flipped. In just a few breaths, as he left the ground, one Beidou after another appeared in the field of vision. What? Seeing so many, Beidou, Kocho Shinobu was stunned. The fruitless peony she was most proud of did hit one of them, but it was a pity that Beidou disappeared immediately. It turned out to be fake. Buzz. Nichiren blades are still ringing, protruding from the tip of the. It's Kocho Shinobu's chin. Looking at Beidou's ancient and calm eyes, Kocho Shinobu was overwhelmed, and helplessness appeared on his pretty face. Mr. Beidou, I lost. The sword technique that Beidou performed just now is exactly the breath of water 3 types. Flowing and dancing. Due to his swift action, several afterimages were left behind where he passed, making Kocho Shinobu lose his target and finally failed. Beidou nodded and sheathed the Nichiren blades. It took only a few tens of seconds for the two of them to attack and finish, but the attacks they set off were one after another. Kocho Shinobu lowered his head, looking a little lonely. She thought that as long as she tried her best, she could at least hit the corner of Beidou's clothes, but unexpectedly. But it wasn't even hurt. Pack up, we're ready to go. Just when Kocho Shinobu was feeling depressed, a familiar voice came from his ear. Looking up, it was Beidou's leaving back. Mr. Beidou, is there anything else you need? No. As if realizing something, Kocho Shinobu blushed and stood upright to salute. Thank you, Mr. Beidou. At this moment, her brows were brimming with happiness again. It's just that Kocho Shinobu knows in his heart that she is far from meeting Beidou's expectations, even far from it. When you go back, you must practice hard. Fight for. Kocho Shinobu didn't dare to continue thinking about it, because when she thought of Beidou's figure, she felt powerless and guilty. Mr. Beidou, is it really human? Soon, half a day passed in a flash. By the time the two left the ghost-killing squad, it was already dusk. This point was chosen because ghosts only act at night and never show up during the day. Quack. Beidou, give the order now. Immediately head to the northwest town to find out where the ogre is. Crows circled overhead, making annoying noises. Beidou nodded slightly, followed by a tomboy imposingly behind him, still holding a big bag in his hand. Seeing this, Beidou frowned slightly. What are you doing with so many things? Kocho Shinobu blinked, and showed them all. These are all prepared by my sister, let me just in case. At a glance, in addition to the weapon smeared with Wisteria flower liquid, there are also some medical items for bandaging, which is enough to show Kanae's caution. For a moment, Beidou suddenly thought of a possibility. Shin, you won't tell me. This is your first mission, right? Before the words fell, the atmosphere fell into silence. Beidou turned around abruptly and found that Kocho Shinobu was avoiding his eyes. Apparently, Beidou guessed right. No wonder Kocho Kanae is so worried, it turns out this is still a rookie. At this time, the long-lost system prompt sounded. Ding, a new check-in task is released. Please ask the host to arrive at the northwest town within 2 days. After completing the corresponding tasks, you will receive system rewards. A small town in the northwest, a barren land. There is little rain here all year round, and it is difficult to grow vegetation and crops. People rely on trading with caravans for a living. Most importantly, it is far away from Kyoto Prefecture and is almost free from government control. This has also led to many cases that have not been resolved for a long time, and this time the disappearance is no different. Within a few days, 6 women disappeared one after another. Their common feature is that they are young, most of them are around 18 years old. As a result, many residents chose to leave, making the town even more desolate. The bizarre incident finally attracted the attention of the ghost-killing team. At this time, 2 Xiao Suo figures came here. Mr. Beidou, the mission location is ahead. Kocho Shinobu holds a map and marks it carefully. Along the way, without Beidou's instructions, she volunteered to act as a guide, but luckily she didn't get lost. Shin, let's find a place to rest first. Hearing Beidou's words, I couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Mr. Beidou, don't we need to know the situation? She meant to inquire about ghosts from the residents here. Beidou shook his head, walked into an izakaya, and at the same time said concisely, do you think they will believe you? As soon as these words came out, Shinobu realized that something was wrong. Not to mention ghosts, I'm afraid they don't even know about the ghost-killing team, so it's hard to ask anything of value. Kocho Shinobu followed Beidou to find a table and sat down, and ordered 2 small dishes. A few drunks saw her and wanted to strike up a conversation, but they woke up immediately when they saw the rapier on Shinobi's waist. In fact, since the 9th year of Meiji, the island country has implemented a ban on knives. According to regulations, except for the royal family and military members, other people are forbidden to carry knives in public, and later developed into the collection of all controlled knives, and private fighting is prohibited. This is also reflected in the original plot. When Tanjiro and his group boarded the Infinity train, the operators arrested him because Inosuke hit the train with his head. Zenitsu told Tanjiro that the Demon Slayer Squad has always been an organization not recognized by the government, so they do not have the right to carry knives, especially in places like train stations, where they are not allowed to walk around at will. Therefore, when a few drunks saw Kocho Shinobu's saber just now, they quickly turned their heads for fear of getting into trouble. Mr. Beidou, Shinobu frowned, but found that Beidou was still sipping his wine glass lightly, so he had no choice but to give up. She propped her chin with her hands in boredom, waiting for the night to fall. Time passed by every minute and every second, and it was finally dark. Kocho Shinobu noticed that when you arrived, the izakaya, which had just been full of people, suddenly became empty. And the boss who was wiping the wine glasses at the front desk also had the faint intention of seeing off the guests. Shin, let's go. Shinobu raised his head and saw that Beidou had already picked up the Nichiren blades. In his clear eyes, there was a figure of a young woman reflected. Kocho Shinobu put 2 copper coins on the table and hurriedly followed, and the woman also turned into a corner. When Shinobu arrived, Beidou was staring at a house in his field of vision. At the same time, he was still talking to himself. Is this the place? What's the matter, Mr. Beidou? Kocho Shinobu trotted over, not understanding Beidou's intentions. Could it be that you've already discovered the ghost? Beidou didn't answer her, but stood quietly at the door with his eyes closed. In desperation, Kocho Shinobu had no choice but to stand aside, holding his sword and waiting. During the process, she couldn't help taking a peek at Beidou, and looked at this man who might become a pillar with doubts in her heart. When anyone faces the unknown existence, there are only 2 thoughts, fear and curiosity, just like the attitude of later generations towards black holes. Apparently, Kocho Shinobu has already experienced the former, leaving only deep curiosity. She still remembers the first time she met Beidou. How impulsive I was, I almost pulled out the Nichiren blades. Fortunately, Mr. Beidou does not hold grudges, huh? Just as Kocho Shinobu was thinking about it, Beidou suddenly opened his eyes. He came. Before the voice fell, Shinobu hadn't recovered yet. The next second, a scream suddenly sounded in his ear. That voice came from the house behind him. Mr. Beidou, there is a situation. Kocho Shinobu hastily drew his rapier, only to find that Beidou's figure had long since disappeared. She turned over and jumped over the courtyard wall, seeing an incredible scene. In a room in the house, the figure of a woman is reflected in the paper window, and what is even more weird is that beside the woman, there was a black shadow that kept swaying. Rustle. Just at this critical moment, a flash of sword light broke through the window. There was a sound of tearing, and the paper window was shattered into pieces, floating in the air. Immediately afterwards, there was a groan of pain in the room. A black shadow in the shape of a snake crawled into the courtyard at a speed that was difficult to catch with the naked eye, and quickly disappeared in front of him. Seeing this scene, Beidou narrowed his eyes. Because that's what he's here for. Are you okay? Hearing Beidou's inquiry, the woman who had just enjoyed the shocking moment subconsciously shook her head. And Kocho Shinobu finally arrived at the scene. Chase. On the quiet street, there were hurried footsteps. Two figures, one big and one small, kept shuttling back and forth, and the prey they were looking for was the fast-running black shadow in front of them. The residents who came and went panicked when they saw the two sword-bearers. It's such a pity for such a beautiful girl. How about we report to the police? Let's go home quickly, I don't want to meet a man-eating monster. Passers-by talked a lot, obviously they were not optimistic about these two people. In the past few days, incidents of missing girls happened one after another, and the shadow has not weakened, but has become more and more intense. Gradually, people's emotions became anxious and fearful. Seeing Beidou and Kocho Shinobu right now, most of them hold the attitude of watching the show. Shinobu, who was galloping, suddenly stopped at a certain moment. At the same time, a trace of panic flashed in her beautiful eyes. Mr. Beidou, that ghost is gone. That's right, just around the corner, the black shadow disappeared out of thin air. Beidou didn't think so, shook his head and said, "Don't panic, he's nearby." Through the message from the wind, Beidou concluded that the ghost hadn't gone too far. Just like the ghost who can only burrow in the village at the foot of the ghost-killing squad. But compared to that ghost, this prey seems to be more difficult now, and Beidou has also identified his identity. That is the triangular ghost that Tanjiro tried in the original plot. He feeds on fresh female flesh and blood, and brazenly says that the reason why he eats 16-year-old girls is to liberate them. This kind of evil thinking is somewhat similar to Doma. And there are two kinds of blood ghost skills in him, clone and stealth, and he is indeed a difficult opponent. However, under Beidou's super sense of smell, he has nowhere to hide. Especially that bloody smell, somewhere in the dark, constituted a murderous root. Mr. Beidou, what should we do now? Wait, what? Shinobu let go of his small hand holding the rapier, and raised his head suspiciously. It's a pity that on Beidou, she couldn't see even a trace of nervousness, as if she was invulnerable. Kocho Shinobu tapped the show head lightly, keeping vigilance at all times. At the other end of the northwest town, in a humid and hot shed. A hideous head emerged, bloody eyes, pale face, and strange horns protruding from the forehead. There is no doubt that he is the ghost who just attacked the girl. How about it? Did you catch it? Sensing the return of the one-horned ghost, two more heads popped out, namely the two-horned ghost and the triangular ghost. Forget it. Unexpectedly, seeing the two of them, the unicorn snorted irritably. A ghost-slaying swordsman came out of nowhere and ruined my good deed. Ghost-slayer swordsman. The two ghosts froze for a moment, with puzzled and curious expressions on their expressions. It seems that in their view, Ghost-slayer swordsman means a plate of fish and meat waiting to be slaughtered, the only difference is whether to eat or not to eat. You guy, you have already swallowed that beauty. That's right, you still want to lie to us. Facing the two ghosts' accusations, the unicorn ghost chattered its teeth in anger, and made a scalp-numbing vibration. For a moment, the two ghosts obediently shut their mouths. As if to prove the truth, the unicorn slowly climbed out of the ground and showed them his injuries. How is this possible? Why, didn't recover. In the field of vision, under the right shoulder of the unicorn ghost, there is a smooth cross-section. One arm was permanently left in the house. It stands to reason that with the astonishing resilience of an ogre, as long as the injury is not fatal, it can recover immediately, but... Do you think I don't want to? The unicorn was indignant, and explained with both fear and helplessness, "This guy's knife seems to be different from those idiots, it seems." Just as the unicorn was complaining, there was a conversation outside the shed. "Shinobu, do you know why you waited now?" "I see, Mr. Beidou." Hearing this familiar voice, the unicorn shuddered. He couldn't help raising his head, and under the moonlight, there was a delicate and indifferent face. And the bloody Nichiren blades. Not good. Breath of flowers, shape of land, whirlpool peach. With Kocho Shinobu's soft call, she has already moved the rapier and swung a horizontal slash. I saw the place where the knife light flickered, and the falling flowers were colorful and beautiful. It's a pity that after such beautiful scenery, it is an irresistible attack. And Kocho Shinobu finally understood Beidou's intention. The reason why he didn't chase after the one-horned ghost right away was because he guessed that there were two other accomplices hiding in the dark and wanted to cast a long line to catch big fish. In the end, it was all caught up. Outside the shed, looking at the swift figure of Kocho Shinobu, Beidou nodded slightly. At the same time, the system beeped one after another. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully arriving at the sign-in location, and the sign-in officially begins. The sign-in time is 10 seconds, and if you quit halfway, it will be considered a sign-in failure. A cold light flashed in Beidou's eyes, those three fighting ghosts. Suddenly he shivered. Invisibly, it seems that there is an existence more terrifying than Kocho Shinobu, and it is watching. Another dinner delivered to your door. And she's a beautiful woman, I'm drooling. Didn't you find out? Unlike the two greedy ghosts, the one-horned ghost obviously felt flustered. This strong sense of crisis does not come from Kocho Shinobu, but the silent Beidou. The one-horned ghost at this moment seems to be dancing on the tip of a knife. Beside him was a napping tiger. Die any moment. The one-horned ghost guessed right, Beidou only needs one thought, and the three brothers can be wiped out of the world completely. However, instead of making a shot, he gave the opportunity to Kocho Shinobu. Beidou wants to see this stubborn little girl pass the exam. Is there any progress? Ding ding. In the hot shed, Kocho Shinobu was dripping with sweat following a burst of fighting. She frowned, and the thin sword in her hand turned out. As the younger sister of Hana Kocho Kanae, Shinobu has always been in the limelight in Demon Slayer, and even Ubuyashiki Kagaya recognized her efforts. But all along, she has not found a suitable opportunity. Come to prove yourself. Coupled with Kanae's love for her, Shinobu rarely comes into contact with ghosts. I remember that the last time she fought against ghosts, she killed 5 ogres in the final selection of Fuji Attack Mountain. Therefore, Kocho Shinobu's mood at the moment is nothing but excitement. Her rapier hasn't been stained with blood for a long time. At a certain moment, the 3 ghosts all rushed towards her, and the stench came over her nostrils. And Kocho Shinobu also made a decision immediately. Breath of flowers, 3 shapes. Mikage May. In the blink of an eye, Kocho Shinobu caught a glimpse, and the white light of the rapier was shining brightly. The first to be hit was the reckless 2-horned ghost. Little lady, just accept death obediently. The 2-horned ghost kicked back while spitting, but unexpectedly, after entering Shinobu's attack range, he was greeted with a swift attack. Wow! As Kocho Shinobu swung the rapier, the demon's neck snapped. Take the head of the enemy general within a short distance. What is even more shocking is that when the evil ghost's neck was broken, it was not cut open, but the sound of corrosion and dissolution. It is the toxin of Wisteria flower. Because Kocho Shinobu is weak and incapable of beheading ghosts, he uses poison to attack, and the effect is remarkable. Impossible, how could? When the 2-horned ghost was dying, he was still staring at Kocho Shinobu with an expression of disbelief. Soon, his head and body were wiped out. With the exception of Kibutsuji Muzan and Oni Kamizuru, most of the Oni are undoubtedly doomed after being beheaded by Nichiren blades. Not to mention an inferior existence like the 2-horned ghost. This guy, the unicorn ghost with only one arm left, gritted his teeth, and the triangular ghost finally realized the problem. If Xiao Ren is allowed to continue killing, the 2 of them will die sooner or later. The 2 ghosts looked at each other, and jumped into the water at the same time, and the flat ground actually had layers of ripples. Seeing this scene, Kocho Shinobu's beautiful eyes widened. Disappeared again. Only Beidou on the side saw this and guessed that it was the blood ghost technique of the triangle ghost. Sneak. In this state, they will blend into the ground and feel as free as swimming in a lake. Of course, this blood ghost technique can't last too long, and they must deal with their opponents before the end. There was a plop, and the two ghosts showed their heads, staring at Xiao Ren's back, and their teeth began to chatter at the same time. Da da da. The sound was very weak at first, but as the frequency increased, the impact sound became more and more annoying, and even formed invisible ripples. Kocho Shinobu, who was infected by the ripples, was crumbling. What's going on? She covered her ears, her pretty face became grim, and she lost her sense of proportion for a moment. Seeing this situation, the two ghosts looked at each other and smiled. It seems that Kocho Shinobu has become the bag. At this moment, in Beto's mind, the system prompt is counting down. 5, 4. The countdown sounded, and at the same moment, Beto also pulled out the Nichiren blades. 0. Ding! Congratulations to the host, the sign-in is successful. Mission reward: stealth and ambush. Beto's eyes lit up, his voice fell, and his figure began to flicker, becoming illusory. At this moment, Beto clearly saw the two ghosts underground. What was even more shocking was that with Beto's mind moving, he disappeared from sight. Completely merged into the darkness. Kocho Shinobu at the side tried hard to open his eyes, but Beto disappeared unexpectedly. Has Mr. Beto gone already? She couldn't accept this fact. With Beto's character, how could he get away with it? However, Kocho Shinobu searched all corners but could not find it. Just when there was a dead silence in the shed, a sudden change occurred. The screams were like thunder, and then, one after another, figures flew out of the ground. The ferocious and painful expressions were the two ghosts who had been lying in wait for a long time. And what flew out after them was a figure that did not touch any dust. And the pale lightning that tore everything apart. It was Kanglongpo. During the baptism of the thunderous curtain, the two ghosts enjoyed the highest standard of death treatment, and they were reduced to fragments and annihilated bit by bit. On the other hand, Beto's figure has also changed from blurred to real. Stealth ambush is not only a powerful assassination method, it can also be concealed. It can be described as a move that combines both offense and defense. Thinking of this, the corners of Beto's mouth curled up into a smile. Despite the lightning and thunder intertwined behind him, he remained steadfast. Nichiren blades are also in the sheath. Chapter 39. After the screams, the two ghosts ended their sinful life. And Kocho Shinobu, who was standing stiffly, finally broke free, and his consciousness gradually recovered. In her field of vision, there was only a flashing white light left. The figure standing still with Beto. What is even more unexpected is that after the death of the two ghosts, there was a light rain in the sky. To be precise, it is some jewelry that reflects the light. Hairpins, bracelets, earrings, and a pink sachet with tattoos. If someone who doesn't know is here, they will think that they are in a woman's boudoir. But seeing this scene, Kocho Shinobu was suddenly stunned. This is. There is no doubt that these are the collections of the triangle ghost, and behind each piece of jewelry represents the tragic death of a girl. Such a light rain is enough to show how many people have suffered misfortune. Before he knew it, Kocho Shinobu's eye sockets were moist. She thought that the murder of her parents by a ghost was already the greatest misfortune in the world. However, after seeing so many young girls similar to her leave the world one by one, the pain in Kocho Shinobu's heart was hard to heal for a long time. A hand on her trembling shoulder was Beto. The two looked at each other in silence, adding a touch of tenderness to this silent night. It wasn't until they left the town that the next morning, some residents noticed the strangeness here. Among them are quite a few old people, after seeing those familiar jewelry. Also shed tears silently. At the same time, they thought of a possibility. This sachet belongs to my daughter, why is it here? Could it be the two warriors from yesterday? They killed that man-eating monster. The crowd exclaimed, but unfortunately, when they came to their senses, where were the figures of Beto and Kocho Shinobu? All the old people can do is pray for the two of them. I wish them good fortune. Half a day later, the two returned to the headquarters of the Ghost Slayer squad. Kocho Shinobu still looked listless. It seems that what she saw this time shocked her young mind. So far, it has not slowed down. Mr. Beto, thank you for your help. The two went all the way to Beto's room, and Kocho Shinobu finally spoke. She pursed her lips prettily, her brows were full of gratitude, obviously from the bottom of her heart. Fortunately, Beto stopped her impulse last time, otherwise. With Kocho Shinobu's current strength, if he goes to the northwest town alone, the danger factor will increase exponentially. After all, she doesn't have Tanjiro's protagonist aura. Thanks again. Kocho Shinobu bowed deeply again before leaving the room. Regarding her growth, although Beto didn't say anything, he saw it in his heart. Presumably through this mission, Shaoran will also grow. Unexpectedly, just as Kocho Shinobu left, a frizzy figure pushed to his door again. Master Beto, long time no see. Kwang near. The person who came was Kakino Kuajin, and he seemed to be in some trouble. I have something I want to discuss with you, can I take a step to speak? Sensing the urgency in Kwang Jin's tone, Beto nodded slightly and let out the door. After entering the living room, Kwang Jin made sure that there was no partition and behind the ears, and only then did he tell the truth. I don't know if you have heard, but due to the recent frequent ghost activities, my lord has held a special meeting of the pillars in order to improve the combat power of all members. Pillar meeting. Hearing this term, related memories emerged in Beto's mind. In the original plot, Ubuyashiki Kagaya, as the leader of the ghost-killing team, did hold several pillar meetings. The one that impressed me the most was the sentencing of Tanjiro and Nezuko after Nada Spider Mountain. It was also because of that meeting that 9 pillars showed up one by one. Beto nodded, motioning for Kwangjin to continue talking. According to the regulations, all pillars have the right to be in the ghost-killing squad. Choose team members to be stepsons. Stepson, as explained above, is similar to the successor of the pillar position. In the original book, Tsuyuri Kanawo is the stepson of Kocho Shinobu, whose strength is only under the pillar. Speaking of this, Kwang Jin's face was a little embarrassed. He seemed to be hesitating whether to continue. In the end, Kwang Jin gave the answer under the prompt of Beto's eyes. Master Beto, I hope you will not be angry after hearing this news. Excuse me. Beto nodded slightly, finally realizing something was wrong. Sure enough, Kakino Kuma recently brought a surprising piece of news. Master Yinju, I want you to be his stepson. Oh. Unexpectedly, after hearing the news, instead of being angry, Beto smiled faintly. This seems to have been anticipated. With Uzui Tengen's character, he would indeed do this kind of thing. I'm afraid it's to pick a stepson in name, but in fact, it's to test your own strength. I see, thank you Kwang Jin-jun for your reminder. Aren't you angry? Kakino Kwangjin's eyes widened, he didn't expect Beto to be so calm. It stands to reason that he will participate in the advanced battle for the position of the pillar next week. Isn't it infuriating that Uzui Tengen is provocative at this time? What he doesn't know is that Uzui Tengen is impatient, but the reason for doing this. It's doubts about Beto's identity. I want to verify whether he is the person in the abandoned temple that night. When is the assessment? Just tomorrow. The next morning, when it was still daylight. On the back mountain training ground, a crowd of ghost-slaying swordsmen had already gathered. In the ghost-killing squad, Zu is second only to being the master, and becoming Zu is the ideal and honor in the minds of countless people. But everyone knows that the conditions for becoming a pillar are too harsh. And as long as he can be selected as a stepson, he will be able to receive Ju's full support, and his status in the ghost-killing team will also increase. The position of the pillar is no longer out of reach. This is undoubtedly a shortcut. Therefore, there are so many swordsmen waiting here. Beto is also one of them, but his purpose is completely opposite to everyone else, but for the invitation of Uzui Tengen. Although he doesn't know how the sound column will be tested, but no matter what, Beto is sure to win. As time went on, he became more and more compatible with the perfect Sesshomaru template, and it would not take long for his strength to increase again. At that time, in addition to Kanglongpo, more moves will be unlocked. Seeing that Beto wasn't nervous at all, Kino Kwangjin shook his head helplessly, and silently looked to the sidelines. Look, Lord Yinju is here. And Master Wazu. At this moment, there were warm cheers from the crowd, and a tall figure landed in the center of the ring with a smile on his lips. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Next, it's up to me to present a gorgeous performance for everyone. It was a young man wrapped in a white scarf, with a strong figure and piercing eyes, with red patterns painted around his right eye, and two strangely shaped big knives on his back. There is no doubt that he is the sound column Uzui Tengen. Walking with him was a tall and slender woman with a smile on her face, waving to the swordsman in the audience. Thank you all. Every frown of Kocho Kanae made the audience cheer, which is enough to show how popular she is in the ghost-slaying squad. She smiled and made a downward gesture, and the training ground quickly fell silent. I believe everyone has also been notified by the Lord. Due to the vacancy of the current pillar, in order to make up for this shortfall as soon as possible, Mr. Tengen and I will select a suitable swordsman as a stepson. What Kanae said was right. At this time, when the green and yellow are not ready, apart from the newly promoted flowers, snakes, and sound pillars, the old man only has Yenju and rock pillars left. Everyone knows that as long as they become stepson, it means that you can enjoy better treatment and abundant resources, such as the Nichiren blades forged by Tetsujin Kawahara himself. For a while, the audience boiled again. However, as Kanae's voice fell, Uzui Tengen took over. At the same time, his eyes stayed in the crowd. That face that was too young. I heard that in our ghost killing team, there is a young man with extraordinary talent. In the past 2 weeks, he has won many military exploits, and he even became famous in the battle in Chie Mountain. Such a gorgeous swordsman deserves our respect. Uzui Tengen smiled faintly, and upon hearing these words, the swordsmen in the audience nodded frequently. This description is undoubtedly a compliment to Beidou. As for Beidou's performance, almost no one had any negative remarks, only admiration and admiration. Personally, I have also admired him for a long time. And I hope that he can pass the test and become a new force of the ghost-killing team, filling the vacancy in the post. Only, unexpectedly, the next moment, Yinzu changed the topic. There was a hint of a smile on the corner of his mouth, and his piercing eyes met Beidou's, and there was an anxious breath in the air instantly. Before the pillar, stepson is also an integral process. I wonder if Mr. Beidou has this will. As soon as these words came out, the training ground fell silent for a short time. What followed were chattering discussions and almost weird looks. Didn't my lord invite Beidou to participate in the advanced battle? Why did Lord Yinju choose him as his stepson? What do you know? Although Beidou performed extraordinary, no one has ever seen him fight Zhu. I think this arrangement is more reasonable. From the opinions of everyone, Beidou heard two meanings. One is that they expressed doubts about Beidou's ability to become a pillar. The second is the jealousy of Beidou's rapid advancement. This kind of performance is really normal. After all, Beidou is too young, it will inevitably arouse the envy and jealousy of everyone. Fortunately, they did not harm or slander, but only with suspicion. If Beidou became stepson first and Zhu later, that would still be within the scope of their acceptance. At this time, Uzui Tengen was looking at Beidou with a smile. In the past 2 weeks, he also analyzed Beidou, and believed that he was indeed a swordsman with extraordinary talent. But the sound column does not think that Beidou can be strong enough to serve as the column. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Beidou nodded with a smile and accepted the invitation of the sound column. Unexpectedly, when he walked up the steps, every step he took, that sharp momentum will increase by 1 point. Suddenly, a strange color flashed in Uzui Tengen's eyes, and his body tensed subconsciously. He suddenly realized that he seemed to have underestimated this newcomer. After Beidou stepped onto the ring, just a glance was enough to make the swordsman in the audience speechless. Seeing this scene, Kocho Kanae was stunned. Can't help but think of the first time the two met in the courtyard that day. Mr. Beidou. After a while, Kocho Kanae spoke first and waved to him. Hearing Kanae's voice, Uzui Tengen swallowed a mouthful of saliva and regained his senses. Before that, he always felt that Beidou was not worthy of his name, and he didn't even take Iguro Obanai's warning seriously. However, when Uzui Tengen actually faced Beidou, he realized that he was wrong. Moreover, it was a big mistake. Just based on this unstoppable aura, he is enough to conclude that Beidou has something to do with the people of that night, or Beidou is the mysterious swordsman. Miss Kocho, long time no see. Beidou smiled, ignoring Uzui Tengen's shock. Is Xiao Ren okay? When Kanae heard this, she tapped the show head. Thank you, Mr. Beidou. The reason why she thanked him was naturally because of Kocho Shinobu. After returning from the small town in the northwest, Shinobu locked himself in the house and practiced the breath of flowers over and over again. If it were on weekdays, Kocho Shinobu would not know where to play again. How could it be so cute? Most importantly, Kocho Kanae can see that the younger sister has changed and matured because of Beidou. Beidou nodded slightly, then looked at the sound column beside him. Mr. Uzui, are you ready? Hearing these words, Uzui Tengen was startled, and nodded instinctively. However, right away he realized something was wrong. Obviously I am Zu, he is the challenger. Why is there a feeling of overwhelming the guests? Uzui Tengen didn't pursue further, but pulled out 2 machetes. Since this is the case, let's start. With the release of the sound column, the strangely shaped double swords also revealed the whole picture. This is a pair of double knives connected by a chain, with a red handle and a golden sword band, and the sound column is usually bound by bandages. It's worth mentioning that on this pair of Nichiren blades, Uzui Tengen also added a little special material, a surprise he prepared for Beidou. Miss Kocho, please announce the start. Hearing Beidou's words, Kocho Kanae raised the command flag to the audience, and when it fell, the entire training ground was silent. Buzz. A strange roar came, and upon closer inspection, Uzui Tengen had disappeared without a trace. The sound column disappeared out of thin air. Seeing this strange situation, most of the swordsmen were dumbfounded, only a very few old people understood the reason. Uzui Tengen learned the breath of thunder when he first joined the Demon Slayer team. After that, he combined ninjutsu and breathing techniques, and used his own advantages to derive the current breath of sound, which achieved a faster speed on the basis of Leihu. So, speed is his home field. Beidou's eyes froze. Of course he knew Uzui Tengen's housekeeping skills. Beidou, I hope you can show. Become the capital of the pillar. On the ring, Uzui Tengen's voice was heard clearly, and in the next second, a knife light piercing the air appeared in front of him. With a tearing momentum, it hit Beidou's face directly. Obviously, the sound column wanted to suppress Beidou with speed, and even forced Beidou to react with the momentum of thunder. If Beidou chooses to defend, what awaits him will be a more explosive attack. Choosing to attack means that Beidou has to find out his position, and Yinju is confident that he can dodge in advance. Either way, it's good for Uzui Tengen. Seeing this picture, all the swordsmen in the audience held their breath, and Kocho Kanae couldn't help frowning. Mr. Beidou, you must calm down. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, Beidou made an unexpected reaction. He quickly raised his hand, and at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye, he swung several sword lights one after another. How is this possible? Beidou's movement and speed don't seem to be slower than Master Voice column. No, even faster. Waves of sword light swept across the sky, almost covering half of the arena. Soon, Uzui Tengen also appeared in the corner. He looked at Beidou in surprise, his hands holding the 2 knives trembled faintly. Faced with his own thunder strike, Beidou didn't play his cards according to common sense, but directly used a range attack without dead ends. Force out Uzui Tengen. Hateful. Uzui Tengen is good at speed, but only if he can touch Beidou. Whenever he wants to get close to Beidou, he has to face the impenetrable sword light rain, which completely restricts his actions. Yinju took a deep breath, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Sure enough, I shouldn't have underestimated you from the very beginning. In Uzui Tengen's vision, those sword lights and the sword marks of the abandoned temple overlapped together. Such a trembling swordsmanship can only be achieved by that swordsman. This person is Beidou. Seeing this scene, Kocho Kanae, holding his breath, released his powder fist and relaxed his body. Because she has seen the end. The breath of sound comes from the breath of thunder, and the characteristics are the same, that is, it needs a fearless offensive and a vigorous effort. Now, Uzui Tengen has slacked off. Without that energy, his defeat is only a matter of time. Thinking of this, Kocho Kanae's eyes stayed on Beidou again. In her eyes, Beidou gradually changed. Wait, what is Beidou going to do? Why is there a white light in his eyes? For a while, Beidou became the focus of attention. Every movement of his is natural, and the scattered sword light is like a pouring rain. I poured it on Uzui Tengen's heart. All the Ghost Slayer swordsmen present were dumbfounded and trembled involuntarily. Among them, it's not that none of them have participated in the stepson assessment, so of course they know how strong Zu is. Even if Uzui Tengen is younger than Rengoku Shinjuro. But even so, he is a real pillar. How could it be so easy to be restrained by Beidou, and there is even a tendency to fail? It's unbelievable. This is the first time I've seen Master Yinju lose the wind. Beidou's swordsmanship is so superb. No, you're all wrong. Among the crowd, a swordsman suddenly spoke up and made a statement that contradicted everyone, which aroused everyone's doubts. There was surprise between his brows, as if he had seen the mystery. The attack released by Beidou is no longer within the reach of breathing techniques. This kind of power seems to be. Before the swordsman could finish speaking, a sudden change occurred on the ring. Facing the aggressive Jian Guangyu, Uzui Tengen could no longer bear it, and was extremely aggrieved. He is a majestic voice, but he will be replaced by a fledgling rookie. Forced to the point of being unable to fight back. If it reaches Iguro Obanai's ears, he will definitely laugh at himself again. No, at least do something. Yinju took a deep breath and held the two sabers again. In fact, he hadn't noticed yet. He has subconsciously admitted his failure. In other words, the fear of fighting Beidou. Look, Lord Yinju is attacking again. Can he break through Beidou's barrier this time? It's hard to say. I now feel that Beidou's position as the pillar is already guaranteed. The situation on the field changed suddenly, and there were many discussions off the field. Who would have thought that a few minutes ago, the swordsmen were still guessing how many rounds Beidou could last under Uzui Tengen? And it's only been a while, and they have already started to think about how long will the sound column be defeated? Hateful. Hearing Uzui Tengen's furious roar, Beidou's expression remained unchanged. A white light flashed in his eyes, and he raised his Nichiren blades again, facing the unknown intruder. Somewhere, Beidou smelled a special smell. This is not a smell of earth and blood, but more like a smell of something burnt. Breath of sound one shape boom. Before the words fell, Uzui Tengen appeared again. He fell from the sky in midair, and pointed two machetes at Beidou's head, as if he was bound to win. What's even more incredible is that the next scene. Boom. When Uzui Tengen's Nichiren blades came into contact with the sword light, almost a second later, a dazzling fire burst out. The flames came from his two sabers. The sound of the explosion also caused an uproar. What? Is this a bomb? You don't understand. This is Mr. Yinju's secret weapon, it is his special explosive. It's over. Beidou is probably in danger. Soon, the arena was covered in smoke and dust, and the figures of the two disappeared. The only thing that can be felt is the sound of fighting and the aftershocks on the ground. The scene fell into silence for a while, and it was extremely anxious. At the same time, a question was born in their hearts: has Mr. Yinju been forced to use explosives? Gradually, as time goes by bit, the smoke and dust were also dissipating, finally revealing the shadows of the two of them. Cough cough. That familiar coughing sound came from Uzui Tengen, who was standing there tremblingly at the moment, and the situation was not optimistic. Even more surprising is that the other figure facing him remained motionless. It is Beidou who is not stained with a speck of dust. Complete victory. Seeing this scene, Kocho Kanae frowned slightly, with a wry smile on his lips. Well, how should such a result be calculated? Although she said so on her lips, she knew in her heart. Uzui Tengen, who is a pillar, lost to Beidou, lost to this rookie who is not even a stepson. Feel the scorching eyes and the dull atmosphere around you. In the end, Yinju heaved a long sigh, and cupped his fists at Beidou. Offended, Beidou, I lost this competition. As soon as this remark came out, the audience was in an uproar. Most of them guessed the result, but still had a fluke mentality, thinking that Uzui Tengen could fight back. It's a pity that this competition was under Beidou's control from the beginning to the end, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a one-sided crush. The blasting method that Yinju is most proud of, in front of Beidou. It's like a child's play. Mr. Uzui, then, Kanae reminded shyly. And Uzui Tengen didn't get discouraged or messed around, instead he announced to everyone in the audience. The assessment is over, the winner is Beidou. Gulu. Feel the sword intent emanating from Beidou. In Shiyumun Tengen's heart, he was almost 100% sure that he was the swordsman in Mount Sagiri that day. You can't go wrong. Just the pressure of the sword can destroy the aftermath of the bombing, and the momentum of the sword seems to have split the air. Such a swordsman has completely transcended the level of swordsmanship, and rose to the realm of birthing sword intent. In the ring, Beidou nodded to Uzui Tengen, as if expressing his approval. But what is even more surprising is that it is far more than that. Wait, look, if I'm not mistaken, Beidou seems to be. You haven't drawn your sword yet. As soon as these words came out, the swordsman under the entire training ground seemed to be choked by an invisible big hand. I can no longer make a sound. Because, as they say, Beidou's Nichiren blades were in their scabbards the whole time. Those scattered sword lights and power. It also all comes from Beidou himself. Noticing this, Kocho Kanae couldn't help feeling a little absent-minded, and said with a smile, Mr. Beidou, I'm curious, is the power you use breathing? Facing Kanae's question, Beidou smiled lightly. He didn't speak, but answered in another way, quietly opened his eyes. The next moment, that bright white light emerged again. It made Beidou look like a god, bathed in white light. This miraculous scene has completely broken everyone's cognition. No wonder Uzui Tengen, who has always been conceited, will admit defeat. Because what he has to face is not just as simple as Zu. It is an unknown force in existence. Sesshomaru. It's really shocking, Mr. Beidou. No, Lord Beidou. I seem to have seen the picture of him becoming the new post. What will his title be? It seems that this is not Beidou's full strength. The eyes of the old players in the audience were already almost dull. They finally understood why Ubuyashiki Kagaya would invite this newcomer to become a pillar. In the ghost-killing squad, strength is synonymous with everything. Even if he has only been in the team for 2 weeks, even if he didn't go through the process of stepson. But today's performance alone is enough to surpass everyone. Even the head of the 9 pillars. Mr. Beidou, please forgive me for my presumptuousness and offense. In the end, it was Uzui Tengen who broke the silence. This 1.9-meter tall man, with an apologetic smile on his face, was touching his head in embarrassment. In all fairness, none of these people who are willing to dedicate their lives to the ghost-killing squad is a dog. Even Koda and Mikawa bravely fought ghosts. What's more, Uzui Tengen has a straight temper, otherwise he wouldn't be able to get along with Tanjiro in the plot. I thought those legends were all bragging about you, but I didn't expect to find out after fighting in person. Actually, I'm the frog in the well. Tengen sighed helplessly, feeling a little lost for no reason. Unexpectedly, in the next second, a cold response came from his ear. Mr. Tengen, we will fight next time. Uzui Tengen was stunned for a moment, and looked up to find that Beidou had already shown a kind smile, without any intention of blaming him. Thank you, Mr. Beidou. This made his eye circles a little red, and he didn't expect the other party to be so generous. At the same time, the doubts in his heart deepened. Where does such a young man have such strength and such a mature soul? Okay, besides Beidou, who else wants to try it? Kocho Kanae smiled and quickly broke the silence. After all, today's assessment is to choose a stepson, and no one expected that Beidou will become the only one in the thriving. Everyone in the audience was silent for a moment, then roars broke out immediately. I'm coming, I want to challenge Lord Yinju. Master Wazu, can my opponent be you? Hey, where is your challenge? You are a glutton. Before the person who wanted to challenge Kanae finished speaking, he was drowned by the saliva of the surrounding swordsmen. Kocho Kanae giggled, her popularity seemed to be higher than expected. On the other side, Beidou also came to the audience. Master Beidou, are you okay? Beidou turned around and saw that it was Kakino Quangjin who came to congratulate him. He seemed a little embarrassed. Soon, Beidou saw his true thoughts. Okay, don't waste time. Beidou glanced at the sound column behind him, and said calmly, go if you want. Kwang Yi was stunned for a moment, then nodded excitedly. Yes. After Kwang Jin greeted him, he excitedly joined the team to attack Uzui Tengen. The sound column on the ring narrowed its eyes. You guys, don't think I'm a persimmon. Wait and see, I'll show you my gorgeous explosives. Ignoring the noise of the training ground, Beidou walked away slowly. But at this moment, in my mind, the system's notification sound came again. Ding, a new check-in task is released. Please host the Shinano River Basin to sign in within a week, and you will receive system rewards. Before leaving, Kocho Kanae also left a word. In her eyes, there was awe of the strong and an inexplicable affection. Although I only met Beidou a few times. But every time, Kanae has a new feeling, and today she feels even more at a loss for the unknown. For sure though, she's the same as Kocho Shinobu. They all became very curious about Beidou. Mr. Beidou, then let's see you next week. After leaving the training ground, Beidou returned to his room. Instead of meditating as usual, he turned over a few maps prepared by Kwang Jin in advance, and read the map of the island country in detail. Not even the most inconspicuous village was spared. Through this trip to the northwest town, Beidou realized that if he wants to complete the task faster, he must be familiar with the geographical environment here. Because it is impossible for him to find a guide every time. Only by mastering the map thoroughly can the task efficiency be improved. Take this Shinano River as an example. Before crossing, Beidou knew little about the island country, let alone the detailed river distribution. If you let him search rashly, it will definitely take a lot of work. What's more, Beidou also noticed that the check-in locations given by the system are often related to tasks. This also means that the Shinano River Basin is very likely to be the target of his next mission. With Beidou's current ability, he is not afraid of any ghost, even Wakuraba. He was also instantly killed by him. However, up to now, Beidou has not officially fought against Shangxian Ghost. Not to mention the Ghost King Kibutsuji Muzan. Fortunately, Beidou has a lot of cards, and most importantly, there are still 3 full years before the plot really starts. He could take this opportunity. Keep getting stronger. Inspire the true power of Sesshomaru. The most urgent task is to go to the Shinano River Basin and meet the upcoming advanced battle of the pillar. After flipping through the map several times, Beidou closed his eyes. In his mind, the battle with Uzui Tengen, and the change of the breath of sound gradually emerged. 10 minutes later, a knock on the door broke the silence of the living room. Beidou opened the door and found that the visitor was Mr. Beidou. Excuse me. The man had long yellow-red hair, sword eyebrows and starry eyes, a loud voice, and the most important thing was those piercing eyes. It is the son of Yenju. Rengoku Kyujiro. After he greeted him respectfully, he stood there a little nervously. Although Beidou and Kyujiro are about the same age, when the two actually met, the latter was completely crushed. What affected Kyujiro was only Beidou's inadvertent aura. So it's Kyujiro-kun, what's the matter? Beidou smiled lightly, at least to ease the atmosphere. Seeing this situation, Rengoku Kyujiro also summoned up his courage and stated the purpose of his visit. Mr. Beidou, I am here this time to deliver a message from my lord. Oh, Beidou's eyes lit up, as if he had guessed something. Sure enough, Kyujiro quickly revealed the answer. According to the information returned by the crow, traces of ogres have been found in the Shinano River Basin. There are rumors that the government sent people to suppress them, but nothing happened. Let it go. I'm afraid there are too many casualties, so I don't want to set foot in the bottomless pit anymore. My lord, I hope that you will go there to investigate this matter. Kyujiro paused, a little embarrassed. Father recommended me as your assistant, and I hope Mr. Beidou. Kyujiro paused, seeming to have made up his mind. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Ever since Beidou left the Rengoku clan last time, Kyujiro has been chasing after his father, Makijiro, asking questions non-stop, even without realizing it. Beidou, the so-called peer, has become his direction and goal. As for Kyujiro's decision, Yanzu was startled for a moment, and then he understood the child's feelings, who hasn't had an idol since childhood. That's why Makijiro tried his best to recommend his son to Ubuyashiki Kagaya. I hope that Kyujiro can follow Beidou and learn some tricks. The most important thing is that Makijiro has unintentionally stated his position, standing firmly on Beidou's side. I understand. Looking at Kyujiro who bowed his head in front of him, Beidou nodded slightly. Really? Kyujiro was stunned for a moment, and then burst into ecstasy. Thank you Mr. Beidou, thank you again. Beidou smiled. He knew in his heart that unlike Kocho Shinobu, who became a monk halfway, Kyujiro, who came from the Rengoku clan, learned swordsmanship from his father since he was a child, and was born with a high degree of compatibility with the breath of flame. Besides, in the plot, he is also rare. A column that can wrestle with Akaza. However, the most important thing is Kyujiro's quality. Faced with Akaza's coercion and temptation, he would not bow to him even if he died. Let's make some preparations first, and leave tomorrow. Yes, Kyujiro nodded emphatically, with gratitude in his eyes. Seeing his back gradually leaving, Beto's eyes flashed, and a thought flashed in his mind. Go back and have a good talk with Ubuyashiki Kagaya. I'm not a kindergarten here, throwing children here every day. However, this also proves that Ubuyashiki is already thinking about Beto, which invisibly brings him into contact with other players. The next morning, Beto got up early. He was still wearing the gray and white yukra, and was carrying the black gold sharp knife. Beto glanced lightly, and happened to see a bold figure rushing towards the living room. Mr. Beto. Hey, sorry, I'm late. Rengoku Kyujiro smiled mischievously, folded his hands together and apologized. He obviously had come half an hour earlier to wait, but it turned out that Beto got up earlier. For his apology, Beto smiled and did not respond. Is everything ready? Aha! Unlike Kocho Shinobu, Kyujiro's packages are very light, mostly bandages and marching pills, and a few lunch boxes. Beto nodded slightly, presumably his mother Rengoku Ruhuo made it early. Since the Rengoku family is so sincere, Beto doesn't mind treating Kyujiro's mother. The reason why he is so confident lies in the perfect Sesshomaru template. The weapon that contains the power of healing. Natural teeth. As long as you have natural teeth, you can easily cure Rengoku's disease. After all, it is one of the legendary 3 swords. But the most urgent thing is to go to the Shinano River to investigate the traces of the ghosts. Quack. Beto, Rengoku Kyujiro, give orders now. Immediately go to the Shinano River basin to investigate the disappearance case. The two looked at each other and nodded in unison. With the departure of Beto and Kyujiro, the tranquility outside the living room was restored again, and a new battle awaited them. At the same time, in the courtyard of the Ghost Slayer squad. Cough, cough, cough. A violent cough broke the silence in the room. Seeing this, the tall man in the darkness stepped out and handed a tissue to the coughing person. My lord, your illness. No, nothing. After careful observation, the coughing person was thin and thin, his original handsome face was damaged by scars, and he was wearing a thin white cloak. He is the leader of the ghost-killing team, Ubuyashiki Kagaya. Seeing Ubuyashiki's crumbling appearance, Himehime Kyume couldn't bear it, but there was nothing he could do. Over the years, he has witnessed Kagaya's condition worsen step by step. However, I have searched all over the world for famous doctors, but there is nothing I can do about it. There is only one reason, that is, what Ubuyashiki got was not a disease, but a curse from his family. This curse comes from the master of the ogre, the source of evil. Kibutsuji Muzan. Xingmingjun, how is he doing? Report to my lord. Yanzu paused, as if he was thinking about something. He, in Ubuyashiki Kagaya's mouth is Beto. After a while, Himehime Kyume finally spoke. This swordsman named Beto just defeated Tengen yesterday afternoon, and it seems to be more than enough. Cough, cough, cough. Perhaps because of excitement, Ubuyashiki coughed more violently, but his cloudy eyeballs were trying to open. The next second, Ubuyashiki slammed the table with his right hand. Okay. My lord, please pay attention to your body. Himehime Kyume hastened to support Kagaya, for fear that he might make a mistake. Unexpectedly, Ubuyashiki pushed him away, and his pale cheeks turned rosy, as if the light had returned. Almost with a trembling voice, he made a judgment. With this person around, when the ghost-killing squad is booming, Kibutsuji Muzan will be defeated. Seeing this scene, Himehime Kyume stared blankly. Following Ubuyashiki for so many years, it was the first time seeing him so fanatical. It seems that the so-called Beto is the demon slayer. At the same time, tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Amitabha, may it be as my lord has said. On the other side, Beto and Kyujiro also came to the mission location. The Shinano country under their feet is located in the north-central region of the island country. The terrain here is easy to defend and difficult to attack. It has been a battleground for military strategists since ancient times. According to legend, during the Warring States period, Takeda Shingen, known as the Tiger of Kai, and Uesugi Kenshin, the dragon of Ichigo, fought fierce battles here, and both sides suffered heavy losses. Now that hundreds of years have passed, the Shinano country has gradually become peaceful. It's just a certain river under it, but it's not very peaceful. Mr. Beidou, the Shinano River is ahead. Kyujiro clutched the map in his hand and couldn't help calling out a reminder. But after speaking, he regretted it. Because Kyujiro found that Beidou didn't stop at all along the way, as if he came here, he was very familiar with every terrain. This made Rengoku Kyujiro even more admired, and silently put away the map. Wait a moment. A cold voice came from his ear, and Kyujiro hurriedly stopped in his tracks. Beidou frowned, and suddenly sniffed, as if he smelled something weird. In the next second, his eyes locked on a ship not far away. Kyujiro, go ahead and explore the way. Yes. Following Beidou's order, he immediately rushed away, completely devoid of pride and airs as the son of Yanzu. In fact, before leaving, Makijiro has repeatedly explained that he must study hard from Beidou and must not be arrogant. Soon, Kyujiro was lying beside the wooden boat. It didn't matter at this point, he was suddenly stunned. This is. In the dilapidated cabin, apart from the bloody water all over the place, there was also an arm that was thrown away at will. It can be vaguely seen that this is the dress of a government official. Hey, what are you two doing? At this moment, a voice not far away suddenly interrupted Rengoku Kyujiro's meditation. He raised his head to look around, and found that there were several men in uniforms, and very few of them had guns pinned to their waists. The dress of these people is similar to the corpses in the cabin. There is no doubt that they are also government officials. Kyujiro. Hearing the voice from behind, Rengoku Kyujiro came to his senses and slowly retracted his outstretched arm. Unexpectedly, seeing this scene, those operators suddenly turned cold. Don't move. Before the words were finished, several people raised their guns, aiming their guns at Kyujiro. Rengoku Kyujiro frowned slightly, subconsciously touched the handle of the knife. Captain, these two people are sneaky, and they still have a knife in their waist. They must have something to do with the case. Maybe they are the murderers. Among a group of operators, a thin young man spoke coldly, and a middle-aged man stood in the direction of his speech. The man has a Chinese character face, with two thick eyebrows, and a pair of narrow eyes are looking at Beidou and Kyujiro. Judging from the title of the young man, he is the captain. Seeing that the captain did not object, the young man nodded, and waved to several operators behind him, gesturing them to shoot. Sensing the opponent's hostility, Kyujiro also slowly drew his sword. In an instant, the atmosphere around the broken ship suddenly became cold. Just as the youth was about to pull the trigger to rain bullets on Kyujiro, a voice broke the silence. And many more. The person who spoke was the captain of the operators. Captain, why? Kondo, stop it. The captain shook his head helplessly, and at the same time gave an order, they are not murderers, put down the gun. As soon as these words came out, everyone showed doubts. Only Beidou nodded, and the sharpness flashed in his eyes. At that moment just now, if the group of operators shot, Beidou had enough confidence to cut off the rain of bullets. Even, cut off their lives with a single blow. But he didn't do this because he saw the hesitation in the captain's eyes. Fortunately, the captain made the right choice. It never occurred to him that he was only 1 second away from death. Captain, why did you let them go? Didn't you notice that these two men were carrying knives? Especially the one in gray. When talking about Beidou, Kondo swallowed deeply, and his hand with the gun was a little unsteady. For some reason, compared to Rengoku Kyujiro who is drawing his sword, he always felt that what Beidou brought was the real threat. Kondo, didn't you hear me? Yes. In desperation, Kondo restrained the fire gun, and his eyes were still unconvinced. Feeling the easing of the atmosphere, the captain nodded and started talking to Beidou. Are you also here for the disappearance case? Hearing this, Beidou nodded slightly, same. The captain smiled awkwardly, and introduced himself. My name is Masao Otani, and I am their captain. I don't know what your name is. Beidou. It turned out to be Mr. Beidou. Masao Otani paused, as if thinking of something. It's convenient, we need to check this fishing boat. Obviously they are the operators, but when Dagu talked to Beidou, he spoke in a humble tone. It is really difficult for people to understand. Seeing this situation, the operators were naturally outraged. Captain, what do you mean? These two guys obstructed our handling of the case, and maybe even destroyed the scene. We must not let them go. Facing the fierce rebuttals from the operators, Otani's face was a little ugly, as if there was something unspeakable to hide. Unexpectedly, in the next second, Beidou, who had been silent for a long time, made a relief for him. Kyujiro, let's go. What? Kyujiro was stunned for a moment. Before he understood what was going on, he saw that Beidou had already left with Nichiren blades. He glanced at the corpse in the cabin, sighed, and finally followed. Mr. Beidou, please wait. Captain, they. Kondo blushed and raised the firecracker angrily. Seeing Dagu's quick eyesight and quick hands, he pushed his hand away, so that no catastrophe happened. Shut up and check the ship right away. But Kondo watched the two leave, his hands clenched into fists. On the other side, Kyujiro also caught up with Beidou. In his eyes, there was a look of doubt. Obviously he didn't understand why Beidou wanted to leave. Kyujiro, haven't you noticed? Beidou smiled faintly and finally explained. The operator named Dagu has a special pattern on his body. He is not our enemy. Pattern. Kyujiro frowned, lost in thought. Soon, his eyes lit up. Mr. Beidou, what you said is the Wisteria family. Wisteria family, an ancient family. The history of their existence can even be traced back to the Warring States period, which is closely related to the birth of the ghost-killing squad. Hundreds of years ago, the head of the Wisteria family at that time was just an ordinary wealthy businessman. He was attacked by a ghost during an accidental trade, and his life seemed to be hanging by a thread. Just at this critical moment, a swordsman appeared out of thin air and sacrificed his life to kill the ogre. And the rich businessman was rescued. After some cross-examination, he learned that the swordsman came from a mysterious organization, and the people there were called ghost hunters. Later, the wealthy businessman found the Ubuyashiki family, and with the joint support of the two. Only then did the ghost-killing squad come into being. In order to repay the kindness of the ghost hunters, the wealthy businessman once promised that he would do his best to help the ghost-killing team and be the strongest backing at all times. Just like in the original plot, the grandma's house that Tanjiro and his party once lived in is a branch of the Wisteria family. And Masao Otani, who just stopped the operators, also from this family. That's why Beidou called Kyujiro away. Apart from not wanting to accidentally injure innocent people, the most important thing is to sell face. I see. With Kyujiro's brain, he quickly figured out the whole story. He clapped his fists, admiring Beidou more and more. If it were him, he would definitely have conflicts with the operators. But what puzzles Kyujiro is, now that Beidou handed over the cabin to Dagu, where should they go to find clues? Kyujiro, how far are we from the incident? Only 2 miles to go. In response, Beidou nodded slightly, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. At this time, those people should have discovered something, unfortunately. Before Beidou finished speaking, he heard a voice from behind. This is Xiaosong's name. How is it possible? Didn't he just arrive here yesterday? As expected by Beidou, the group of operators recognized the identity of the corpse and were yelling. Kyujiro took a deep breath, and when he came back to his senses, Beidou had already moved on. Because he has already found out the whereabouts of the ghost. Follow the breath of the wind. As for the group of stupid operators, it is estimated that they will be delayed on that broken ship for a while. It was not until the afternoon that Beidou and Kyujiro stopped. The place where they stayed was the nearest fishing village to the Shinano River, where most of the people lived by fishing. The fishermen at the entrance of the village instinctively felt fear when they saw the two men with knives. Even the eyes are avoiding. It seems that many people have come to harass them these days, and they even have resistance. Under Beidou's instructions, Kyujiro ran all over the village before he found an old fisherman who was willing to speak. The two are not from the government, are they? Kyujiro nodded, and did not hide his identity. Hi, sir, we are members of the ghost-killing squad, and we came here specifically to look for a ghost. Ghost. The old fisherman took out a rag and wiped the mud off the pole. Whether it's a ghost or a human, we don't have what you're looking for in this small village, so go back quickly. Master, we are not. Kyujiro wanted to explain, but found a hand on his shoulder. Looking back, it was Beidou's indifferent eyes. In that case, excuse me. It's okay. If you have time, why don't you sit down and catch some fish, maybe you can catch a meal. The old fisherman sat down cheerfully, and handed over a fishing rod. Kyujiro was at a loss for his odd behavior. Unexpectedly, in the next second, Beidou took the fishing rod generously and sat on the boat without any scruples. Mr. Beidou, you are. Kyujiro didn't understand what he meant, but didn't bother him any more, and stood quietly aside. Time passed by, the sun went down, and night fell. Plop plop. In the basket next to the old fisherman, there are more than a dozen salmon that are alive and kicking, obviously a good harvest. An old fisherman like him has already mastered the skills of fishing, and a dozen or so are considered few. In contrast, Beidou's fish baskets are not so pretty. It's just empty. That's right, Beidou hasn't caught a single fish since sitting at dusk. Seeing this scene, Rengoku Kyujiro next to him shook his head frequently. He really didn't know what Mr. Beidou was going to do. This is completely inconsistent with his outstanding performance in the ghost-killing squad. Is this also a kind of practice? The old fisherman beside him also had meaningful eyes. Gradually, a few dark clouds floated from nowhere, covering the bright moon in the sky. And the shimmering Shinano River was also covered with a layer of clouds. At a certain moment, Beidou's fishing rod moved. Patter. With a slight noise, Kyujiro's eyes lit up. Mr. Beidou finally caught a fish. However, within 2 seconds, the fishing rod returned to silence. The old fisherman squinted his eyes and looked at Beidou carefully, only to find that he had closed his eyes at some point. Invisibly, it has already merged into the vast night. The old fisherman looked, and when he was about to speak, suddenly, a strong sea breeze was blowing. What is even more incredible is what happened next. On the Shinano River facing the three of them, the sea breeze stirred up faint ripples, and as the wind intensified, it even set off waves. This phenomenon is not uncommon, at most it is windy. But the old fisherman never imagined that the sea breeze brought not only moist air, but also. Wow! The waves surged higher and higher until finally, they even formed a wall. The overwhelming waves are about to crush the fishing boat. At this moment, Beidou opened his eyes. A white light emerged from his waist. It turned out that he had drawn the knife. Suddenly, the waves stopped traveling. And in the next second, a crack as thick as a bucket appeared in the center of the thick water wall. To be precise, it was cut off in the middle. Wow! The waves came crashing down hard, hitting the shore. Silver-white figures descended from the sky, which turned out to be countless jumping and swaying salmon. Soon, Beidou's fish basket was filled. The old fisherman couldn't control his hands and let go of the fishing rod. Now, can you tell me one or two? Gulu. Seeing this shocking scene, the old fisherman was stunned for 3 minutes before he finally came to his senses. At his feet, there are several salmon flopping about. This, my lord, just call me Beidou, Master Beidou. The old fisherman took a deep breath and finally stopped stuttering. I can probably guess why you came here. I'm afraid it's also because of that monster. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere on the fishing boat suddenly became serious. Rengoku Kyujiro's eyes widened, like an owl in the dark night. Beidou knew very well that the monster he was talking about was a ghost. It's just that in the minds of ordinary people, there is no concept of ogres at all, let alone Kibutsuji Muzan. Perhaps for the old fisherman, himself and Kyujiro. It's also a monster. Young man, although I don't know why you are here, but I know. If it was you, you would definitely be able to kill him. Afterwards, the old fisherman told about the ghost. Compared with the information given by the crow, the time has moved forward. Since last month, a person has been missing from their fishing village, but because the person is usually lazy and has little contact with the villagers, everyone ignores his death. Until a family of 3 died at sea. Only then did someone associate the two things together. Because according to common sense, a mere Shinano River will not drown people at all. Even if it is drowned, it will not drown a family. Gradually, people in the fishing village spread rumors. A water monster came to the Shinano River, and some people said that the river god was angry and needed a living sacrifice. Officials came here to investigate, but found no signs. In order to find out the truth, the operators found a fishing boat and took the firecrackers to the opposite side of the Shinano River. Unexpectedly, after that day, all 3 of them disappeared forever. Not even a body was left behind. Then came the intervention of the Ghost Slayer squad and the arrival of Beidou and Kyujuro. After listening to the story of the old fisherman, Kyujuro couldn't help frowning. He looked at Beidou and subconsciously asked for advice, after all he was just an assistant. Just at this moment, there was a whining sound from the entrance of the village. "Where's your village chief? Tell him to come out. We just want to know where the last operator went." "Monster, what nonsense are you talking about?" Hearing this familiar voice, Kyujuro sighed. "Mr. Beidou, that group of people has followed again." "It's okay, let's go and have a look." Beidou and the old fisherman exchanged glances and went ashore at the same time. At this time, outside the fishing village, a group of operators held oil lamps. The flames flickered non-stop, illuminating the face of the leader, and it was Otani. "Folks, we have been ordered by the government this time to investigate the latest disappearance case." Standing opposite Dagu were the men, women and children of the village. Hearing his inquiry, everyone was speechless, with unnatural expressions on their faces. Moreover, the eyes are also dodging. "Look, the village chief is here. It seems that there are 2 other warriors. I don't know where they came from." A voice came from behind the crowd, and after a while, everyone made way for an old man walking slowly. The old man tremblingly cupped his fists and spoke with a pleasant face. "I don't know, sirs, what's the matter?" Seeing this picture, Kyujuro stared blankly, because the village chief in the crowd. "It is the old fisherman." Otani nodded, and was about to respond when Kondo behind him interrupted him. "Why are you 2 again?" "Captain, I just said that they are with the monsters, and now they come to the village to harm people. It's better to catch them quickly." Before the words fell, Kondo had already picked up the firecracker. The targets were Beidou and Kyujuro. Otani Masao was stunned. Apparently he did not expect his subordinates to be so reckless, which completely disrupted his plan. More importantly, Kondo poured this pot of dirty water. As soon as they heard that Beidou and Kyujuro had something to do with the monster, the fishing village was immediately enraged. All of a sudden, everyone looked sideways. It seems that Beidou and Kyujuro are the murderers. "Everyone be quiet, be quiet." The old fisherman smiled wryly, and as he spoke, the scene gradually calmed down. It's just that everyone looked at the 2 of them, full of suspicion and fear. After all, even the officials of the government had spoken, and they couldn't believe it. "Sir, it seems that there is some misunderstanding between you." The old fisherman stood in the middle and acted as a peacemaker. "As far as I know, this gentleman is also here to kill monsters, not a bad person." Hearing these words, Dagu smiled and nodded. As a member of the Wisteria family, he was installed in the government. Just from his attire, he can tell that Beidou and Kyujuro are from the ghost-killing squad. Unfortunately, he couldn't explain it, because the ghost-killing squad is an organization not recognized by the government. Once the existence of cannibals is announced, it means panic and turmoil, so the government will conceal it. "You said they were not murderers, what evidence do you have?" "That's right, do you believe us? Still trust the 2 Ronin with knives?" Seeing that Beidou remained silent, Kondo thought he was guilty, so he aggressively launched an offensive. However, in Beidou's eyes, these actions of his, it's no different from a jumping clown. In other words, stupidity had foreshadowed his death. Facing Kondo's pressing questions, the old fisherman suddenly fell silent. In fact, he really couldn't produce any evidence to clear the suspicion of Beidou and Kyujuro. In desperation, the old fisherman had no choice but to sigh. "Sir, if you don't believe me, old man, I am willing to take this life as a guarantee." As soon as these words came out, the noisy fishing village suddenly became quiet. Everyone was at a loss. They never thought that the village head would make such a decision. Could it be? Are these 2 samurai really not bad guys? Feeling the determination of the old fisherman, Kondo was choked to death, obviously a little bit deflated. But even so, he still has prejudices against the 2. "Okay, Kondo, don't say a few words." Seeing that the atmosphere gradually calmed down, Otani Masao quickly smoothed things over. "Village chief, we don't doubt you too, you also know the seriousness of the matter." The old fisherman nodded, showing a clear expression. As the head of a village, he was deeply trusted by the villagers, but now he watched several lives die. How can an old fisherman feel at ease? But he didn't dare to make up his own mind, because before Otani, several operators had disappeared in the Shinano River. The old fisherman. Dot was afraid that Dagu would follow in the footsteps of those people. The reason why he tried his best to protect Beidou and Kyujiro was because he saw the possibility of killing monsters in them. Not only to save the village, but also for the peace of one side. Forget it, since everyone insists on going, then let the old man lead the way for you. After a battle between heaven and man, the old fisherman spoke slowly. Hearing these words, Beidou fixed his eyes, and he could feel the determination of the old fisherman. Otani Masao nodded and clasped his fists. Then trouble the village chief. No trouble, no trouble. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, several fishermen came out and wanted to share their concerns with the old fisherman, but they were rejected one by one. The reason he gave was simple: if it was just sailing, one person would be enough. The future of the fishing village depends on these young people. Master Beidou, Captain Otani. When you're ready, let's go. Beidou and Masao Otani looked at each other, and nodded slightly at the same time. From the old fisherman, they saw the spirit of responsibility, and it will be smooth sailing with him in this trip. On the other hand, Kyujiro reminded in a low voice, Mr. Beidou, are you sure you want to join them? What Kyujiro was referring to was naturally Kondo and his party. Beidou smiled and didn't respond. To him, just a few trash fish can't make waves, even if all the people add up. It's no different from ants. Okay, Kyujiro nodded and followed closely. Soon, with the assistance of the veteran fishermen, several people divided into two teams and boarded the fishing boat, heading towards the center of the Shinano River basin. The night was hazy, and the Shinano River was dead silent. On the fishing boat, Beidou sat cross-legged in the cabin and closed his eyes in thought. He turned on the system and looked through the mission introduction given by the system again. Please host the Shinano River basin to sign in within a week, and you will receive system rewards. Now the fishing boat has reached the Shinano River, but the system still has no response, which means the actual check-in location is not nearby. Where would that be? Attention everyone, it's windy again. The old fisherman watched the wind direction at night, held the oar tightly in his hand, and issued a reminder to everyone. As soon as he spoke, everyone raised their heads sparsely. It doesn't matter if you look at it, everyone subconsciously held their breath looking at the strange phenomenon in their field of vision. The waves rolled up and down one after another, and the water splashed in all directions, bringing a humid air current. Under the pale moonlight, the waves also reflected a kind of weirdness. It seemed that there were pairs of invisible big hands that might reach out from the water at any time and drag them into the bottom of the river. Seeing this scene, Kondo's entire face was as pale as paper with fright. At the same time, tremblingly raised his head. 3. Santu River. The Santu River in his mouth, also known as the Santu River, is similar to the Wangchuan in Chinese mythology, which is the dividing line between life and death. Because the flowing water is divided into 3 speeds, slow, normal and rapid according to the behavior of the deceased, it is called Santuchuan. According to legend, the water in the Santuchuan River is not buoyant and contains poison that corrodes the soul. Once it falls into the water, will never be reborn. Hearing Kondo mention this term, everyone felt like a pain in the back. There was even some unrest among the crowd. Don't panic, it's just a wind blowing. Otani Masao tried his best to calm people's hearts, but unfortunately in the face of life and death, his comfort was of no avail. Contrary to everyone's panic, Beidou thought of something else. According to legend, a flower blooms on the banks of the Santu River, which symbolizes death and can point out the way forward for the souls who have left the human world. That is the other shore flower. For thousands of years, what Kibutsuji Muzan has been pursuing is also called the blue flower of the other shore. What kind of relationship will there be between the two? Be careful. The yelling disrupted Beidou's contemplation, and when he took a closer look, a wave had already hit the boat hard. The river overturned an operator, drenching his clothes. What is even more incredible is that the river water was black and exuded a rotten smell. In the next second, in Beidou's mind, a reminder sounded as expected. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully arriving at the sign-in location, and the sign-in officially begins. The sign-in time is 10 seconds, and if you quit halfway, it will be considered a sign-in failure. The moment Beidou heard the notification tone, Beidou's eyes lit up. But what attracted his attention more was the operator who had just been overthrown by the wave. Cough, cough, cough. Asai, what's wrong with you? The operator named Asai was out of breath. Against the background of the moonlight, his entire face was extremely pale, and his eyes protruded. At first glance, it looks like a dehydrated fish. Water, water. Asai held back for a long time before finally uttering 2 words. Hearing these words, Dagu quickly took out the kettle and stuffed it into his mouth. He only heard a few gurgles, and when the water moistened Qianjing's throat, his complexion gradually improved. And Dagu also noticed something strange. Why is your body so cold? He lightly touched Asai's shoulder, and suddenly there was a needle-like pain in his fingertips. It was like falling into a hole in the ice. Before Asai could answer, someone solved his doubts. It's water, water. Dagu turned around and looked, and it was Beidou who said indifferently, don't you realize that the river water is weird? Upon hearing this, Kondo retorted subconsciously. What's weird? Don't play tricks here. I still don't believe it. What kind of weirdness can there be in this water? He seemed to be deliberately trying to raise the bar. He was so scared to death 1 second ago, but he boldly stretched out his hand the next second. In the silence, Kondo swallowed, holding up a bucket of river water. Time passed by every minute and every second, nothing happened, only the wind and waves were still echoing in my ears. Seeing everyone's bewildered expressions, Kondo showed a victorious smile. In order to embarrass Beidou, he actually made such a risky move. How about it? I just said that the water is fine, but why? Wow. In the next second, the silent Shinano River suddenly churned. The whole fishing boat shook violently, as if it had been hit by some unknown creature, and everyone couldn't stand firm. The whole process lasted for half a minute. After the weather calmed down, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but Captain Dagu realized the problem. Wait, where's Kondo? Where did that guy go? Has anyone seen him? As soon as this remark came out, the rest of the operators suddenly realized that Kondo, who had been teasing just now, had disappeared. All of a sudden, the whole fishing boat was silent. They seemed to be choked by invisible hands, and their faces were full of solemnity. Under the eyes of everyone, Kondo disappeared. And, the time to commit the crime was only half a minute. Oh, it really happened again. The old fisherman sighed and drooped his head sadly, as if he had aged 10 years all of a sudden. Village chief, what do you mean? That's right, where did Kondo go? You, tell me quickly. In desperation, some operators even raised their guns and pointed them at the old fisherman's head. But before they opened fire, a flash of sword light flashed. The scorching breath almost rushed towards the face, and the next second, the body of the gun broke with a sound. Da-da, half of the barrel fell to the ground, and the bullet blocked the hole. This, how is it possible? How did the sword cut through the steel? Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay, couldn't help raising their heads to look around, and found that the sword light came from a young man. It was Rengoku Kyujiro. On his young face, there was a little sullenness. Obviously he didn't want the old fisherman to be implicated. Mr. Beidou, please come down. Kyujiro scabbarded the Nichiren blades and bowed. For his apology, Beidou nodded, no need. It can be observed that after Kyujiro cut off the gun, no one dared to act rashly again. At the same time, fear flickered in their eyes. Can split steel with one sword. Who are these 2 warriors? Mr. Beidou, do you know where Kondo is going? Dagu paused, and finally asked. He only believed in Beidou among this group of people. Beidou nodded slightly, and moved his eyes to the bottomless Shinano River. There he is. What? Hearing these words, everyone was at a loss, and then a sudden change occurred. The waves surged again, hitting the fishing boat wave after wave, making everyone staggered and dizzy. Gradually, a vortex formed in the center. Looking in the direction Beidou pointed, a black figure rose from the vortex. It was a disheveled man with waves on his feet. Crunch, crunch. He was still holding something in his hand, and he was chewing vigorously, and the sound of swallowing was endless. Such a strange scene immediately made one's scalp tingle. But what was even more shocking was that the man actually spoke. Village chief, thank you for bringing so many people to me. This time, I can finally eat enough. The man laughed loudly, and threw something at them with a casual throw. It was not until the thing fell on the boat that everyone finally saw it clearly. It was a broken arm. This is Kondo's vomit. The operators felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy, and some of them already wanted to urinate. They never imagined that they would meet such a terrifying enemy. Coincidentally, Beto's prompt sound also ended just right. 3, 2, 1. At this moment, the man also showed his face. His hair was dark green like seaweed, he was wearing a thin brown kimono, and his whole body was also wet. His eyes were filled with appetite as he looked at the crowd. Let me taste it. What kind of taste do you have? 0. Ding. Congratulations to the host, the sign-in is successful. Mission reward. Light whip. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.